You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Welcome back to another episode of the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Weeks, and today we have a special guest.
Hello, it's me, Murph. I'm back again to talk about Doctor Who, Rachel.
Doctor Who! Excited. You're a Doctor Who fan.
I love Doctor Who.
I love that.
Doctor Who is a lot of fun. I like it a lot. I've been watching since, the reboot series. Skipped a little here and there, but mostly caught up now, so...
Well, there's a lot of doctors.
There's a lot
a
of
doctor
doctors.
a day keeps the apples away. That's what they say.
That is
I'm pretty sure.
Keep going, Rachel. Keep going.
The 4 Doctor Who themed precons have been released. We're doing update grades on them as we always do. But today we are going to finish up the specific commanders that we are going to talk about, namely the Doctors. But before we get into the details of this episode, we're going to talk about a lot of Magic cards, and you're going to want to pick them up. You're Magic players. You love Magic cards. Go to cardkingdom.com/command to pick up those cards when you do so, and you can also support this show while you do it. Card Kingdom has a great selection of sealed product and singles. There's a lot of different styles of cards these days. There's the extended art, and there's the TARDIS art cards. There's a ton of different singles of the cards you're looking for, so you want to make sure that the place that you're shopping has the collection to back it up. You can get exactly the cards in exactly the condition that you're looking for. Plus, Card Kingdom ships it all to you in one safe, professional package. So you're not chasing envelopes through the mail, being like, where did those last 2 cards go? I swear I ordered them like 3 weeks ago. You can always trust Card Kingdom. It'll ship it in one package, get it safe on your doorstep so you can sleeve it up and get playing. Again, support the show and support your growing Magic habit at cardkingdom.com/command.
Yep. And once you get those cards, make sure to protect them with ULTRAPRO products. ULTRAPRO has the best products to protect your game pieces. So they got play mats, they have dice, they have sleeves, like the cool new Apex sleeves.
They're so sick.
They're so sick. Those are now going to be my go-to sleeves to sleeve everything in.
Yeah, the Apex sleeves are something that ULTRAPRO has been working on for a while. They've been working on the perfect sleeve technology, specifically for like printed art sleeves, and they finally cracked it with Apex. They're really, really cool sleeves. They're not out at time of recording, but I'm looking forward to them being on the shelves. So keep an eye out for Apex sleeves. We'll put a link below, and you can find out all about them.
Yeah, and you can go to ULTRAPRO's website at ultrapro.com/command. They got fire sales on there all the time. If you need literally any products at all for your card game accessories, they probably have it, and they probably have a good price. So ultrapro.com/command.
Absolutely. Oh, a cool announcement. If you're a big fan of the show, we are on TikTok now. We're doing Reels, we're doing Shorts, and we are doing TikToks. So,
I knew we were doing Shorts.
Yeah.
I didn't actually know we had a TikTok because I don't have the app.
If you're a TikToker, unlike Murph,
sorry,
go follow us. We're going to be putting out some edits of videos that we release here, but hopefully we'll be doing bespoke TikTok content soon. So give that a follow. You can also support the show directly by going to patreon.com/command zone. Our patrons get access to a lot of cool perks. They get to see game nights and extra turns a day early without ads. Nice. You can just watch right through them, and there's no spoilers. You don't log in and see all the comments and know exactly how the game went.
Just watch the video and don't look at the comments anyway. You're fine.
There's so many spoilers in there, and I always want to see how people are excited.
I'll put a comment up there that just says spoiler shield.
That says spoilers below. But our patrons get access to it a day early. Plus, they get access to exclusive content like Turn Talk, which is a conversation that we have after every game of Extra Turns. How the game went, how our decks performed, what we wish we could have drawn, if we had just one more land on that pivotal turn, what could we have done in the game? So make sure you support the show at Patreon, because we shout out one lucky patron every single episode, including this one, and this one goes out to Mario Benkert. Mario, you rock.
You rock, Mario. Thanks a lot.
Let's get into it. We are talking about the best doctors in Doctor Who. We've talked about 2 of the doctors already. They're in the most powerful episode. So those doctors are going to be sort of like, you can do the biggest, most explosive stuff. But there's some really, really sick doctors in this episode as well. If you haven't investigated Doctor Who very much, every doctor can be paired with a Doctor's companion.
Yeah, so it makes the Doctors pretty interesting to talk about because it's not just what the Doctor brings to you, to your deck at its face value, but it has all sorts of different pairings that can go with it. And I think, Rachel, we've done kind of what we think might be the best choice for companions to go with things, but obviously there will be more choices beyond what we've mentioned.
Right. That's the cool thing about this kind of partner mechanic. It's sort of similar to backgrounds. Is you get to mix and match as you desire. The ones that we've chosen to talk about today are the ones that allow us to talk about the most
stuff.
Companions.
Either they add a color or they add a mechanic that pairs very well with the Doctor that we're talking about.
I didn't want to talk about the same companions a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
So we mixed up the companions to go with everything, and we picked some ones that are mechanically super interesting to us. Obviously, we couldn't talk about all of them. There's 15 playable Doctors. There's 26 Doctor's companion cards. It leaves like a possible 390 Doctor / companion.
I'll trust your math on that one because I'm not good at math.
I'm pretty sure the comments will let you know. But
yeah, we also have some flavorful picks of companions that we'll just throw in at the very end. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it.
If you want to pair a Doctor with their true friend and not just some random lady.
Yep.
You can get into it. Well, we are going to go in numerical order.
Sure. Yeah.
That's how we did it? Yeah, that makes the most sense. I think starting with the first.
Starting with the first Doctor. All right, first Doctor. 1 white and a blue. Legendary creature, Time Lord Doctor. Like all of them will be. When it enters the battlefield, search your library and or graveyard for a card named TARDIS. Reveal it, put it into your hand. If you search your library this way, shuffle. And when you cast the spell with Cascade, put a +1/+1 counter on target artifact or creature. And it's a 2/2. So then that begs the question. What does the TARDIS do? Rachel?
The TARDIS is a 2-mana artifact vehicle. It's a 2/4 with flying. Whenever it attacks, if you control a Time Lord, the next spell you cast this turn has Cascade, and you may Planeswalk. Crew 2.
Huh, Rachel, that's interesting. My commander, the Doctor that searches it.
He's a Time Lord.
He's a Time Lord.
Convenient.
Very convenient. Convehicular. Okay, nope. No. We tried.
I appreciate the effort, you know?
It's okay. I poo-pooed your Dr. Apple joke a little earlier, so.
I don't know. I like the Dr. Apple joke. I'm sticking to it. Conveniently, the first Doctor can also crew the TARDIS because he is a 2/2. The companion that we have picked to go with the first Doctor is very powerful and is red. Red is like one of the deepest Cascade colors. So we felt like we really wanted to add red because Azorius isn't necessarily known for cascading. So Yasmin Khan is going to be the Doctor's companion for this build. She is a human detective for 3 and a red. She's a 3/3 and has an activated ability that says tap, exile the top card of your library until your next end step. You may play it.
Yep.
Just draws a card.
Yeah, that's really all you're using it for. I was looking at the first Doctor and I was like, oh, well, why don't we pair something like Ryan Sinclair, which if you don't know what that is, it's when it attacks exile cards from the top of your library to exile a non-land card, and you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost if it's a spell with mana value less than or equal to Ryan's power. But Ryan's only a 2/2.
Yeah.
And ideally with a Cascade deck, you want to be playing things of all sorts of mana value and not just 1 or 2. And in order to get that bigger, you have to buff him. Also, he has to be able to get through for damage in order to do his thing. So I was looking at Ryan Sinclair and I was like, oh, well, it's good because it pairs with Cascade. Right. You want Cascade payoffs in a deck that cares about Cascade. So why not include Ryan in there? And I was talking with you about this a little bit earlier, that I think just having something that adds red and adds a little bit more value to the deck is probably a better choice.
Yeah, adding Ryan, you really do have to get in ways to buff his power so you can cast anything that you hit. I didn't realize that when you don't go until you hit a thing you can cast with Ryan. You go until you hit a spell and hope you can cast it.
Yeah, and then if it's 0, 1, or 2, you can cast it. Great. It probably isn't.
Yeah.
And he's a 2/2 that has to attack, so he's probably just going to die in combat.
I mean, you do have the first Doctor, which is whenever you cast a spell with Cascade, you can put a counter onto Ryan.
That's not bad.
Which does help give the buff, but you do have to be able to like cast stuff with Cascade, which it just asks a lot of you to get that value that Yasmin would just draw you that card.
Yeah, so the thing I like about Yasmin is not just that it's an extra card draw, because extra card draw, especially in the command zone, is always great, but it puts it into exile, which then you cast from exile. And the cool thing about Cascade is that it casts things from exile. So you're probably running payoffs for casting things from exile anyway in the deck.
So there is some synergy there. They like cards, the same cards.
Yeah.
So they can hang out.
Yeah, they can hang out, have a good time.
First thing we have to talk about if we're talking about the First Doctor and the TARDIS is Cascade cards. Cards with Cascade. And there's a lot of really, really cool ones. I particularly liked the ones that can cascade multiple times or help you like start a chain. So like Throes of Chaos is a spell that's a 4-mana sorcery that says Cascade and Retrace. So it just gives you a Cascade trigger for 4 mana anytime you want it.
Yep, you just have to discard a land to retrace it from the graveyard and keep doing it over and over again.
Seems cool.
Yeah, seems pretty neat. Yeah.
There's a new one that's similar to this.
Yeah, Into the Time Vortex, it's Cascade and Rebound, which means that you cascade a turn it happens, and then it goes into exile. And at the beginning of your next upkeep, you cast it without paying its mana cost, and then you'll just cascade again.
Gives you a bunch of Cascade triggers all together.
Yeah, super on theme too.
Yeah. I liked Flamekin Herald. Is 2 in a red commander spells you cast have Cascade. So you can cast the First Doctor and go get the TARDIS, and then you can cast Flamekin Herald, and ideally you can cast the TARDIS as well if you've ramped on turn 2. So you cast Flamekin Herald, you cast the TARDIS, and then the turn after that you can cast Yasmin, Cascade.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Get some triggers going.
I like that a lot. But yeah, this is one of the reasons why we wanted to include a red Doctor's Companion with it, because there's just all these synergies and payoffs that go along with it.
Wild Magic Sorcerer is cool too.
Oh, that one's sick. The first spell you cast from exile each turn has Cascade. Well, Yasmin Khan likes that a lot too.
And if you cascade into a spell, you cast that from exile.
Yep,
so it'll give you a
again.
second cascade into it. So you get 2 Cascade triggers right away.
Yeah. Something like Dark Apostle as well. 3 and a tap. The next non-creature spell you cast this turn has Cascade. There's so many cool toys to play around with in this deck.
This card's really, really sweet, and it gives you that Cascade trigger off of non-Cascade spells, which means that you can just maximize all of your cascading value. Speaking of maximizing your cascading value, I liked including Phyrexian Metamorph in this deck because it's you know that you have a great copy target in the TARDIS.
Yeah, and the TARDIS notably is not legendary, which I thought it might. Technically, there's lots of TARDISes. It is a type of ship, time and relative dimension in space. And
do they all look the same?
No. So the police public call box look is its disguise. So it's supposed to, wherever it goes, it blends itself into the surrounding area. So it went to 60s Great Britain. Yeah. But then it short-circuited and it broke. And so the disguise is stuck on that and just has been ever since the First Doctor.
Pretty fun.
Yeah, there you go. Trivia for you, the people that don't watch Doctor Who. Which you should.
And Phyrexian Metamorph makes it a Phyrexian TARDIS.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think it does. It makes it an artifact. It's fine.
But it's cool.
Notably, if you clone a vehicle, it doesn't stay crewed. It's just a vehicle. It will stop being crewed. But you will have to crew it again.
You do have 2 commanders, and so you have 2 things that can possibly crew.
Yeah.
If Yasmin Khan's not drawing you a card, she can definitely hop in the TARDIS, go for red.
There you go. There's some cool stuff that you can do when you're casting stuff from exile frequently. I like Vega the Watcher in this deck.
Yeah, Vega the Watcher is super cool.
Doesn't often get into Cascade decks because blue-white isn't super common in Cascade, but Vega says whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, draw a card.
And if you pair this with things like Wild Magic Sorcerer, where you're cascading into a cascade, it'll just refill your hand so easily.
You're casting things off of Yasmin, you draw a card there. Gives you a lot of value in this deck. Plus, it can drive the TARDIS too.
Yeah.
It's not a Time Lord, but you know.
Sure.
I like See the Truth in Cascade decks. That's it's just a tidy little 2-drop that when you cast it from anywhere other than your hand, you draw 3 cards.
Yep.
Which is handy.
Super neat. Like something like, this is a new one, Extraordinary Journey.
This card's great.
It's XX blue, and when it enters the battlefield, exile up to X target creatures. For each of those cards, its owner may play it for as long as it remains exiled. But, the important text, whenever 1 or more non-token creatures enter the battlefield, if 1 or more of them entered from exile, or was cast from exile, you draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So I love this because it is removal. but it's an X spell that's not a dead draw if you hit it off of Cascade.
Absolutely. If you're playing a Cascade deck, you really don't like X spells, but this one just works if X is 0.
Yeah, because it'll be on the battlefield, and now whenever you're cascading, once per turn, you'll be able to draw a card whenever you do that casting from exile.
As long as you hit a creature.
Yep.
Pretty good. Also, Extraordinary Journey feels on flavor for Doctor Who.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of fun stuff with the First Doctor, I feel.
We teased some cast from exile stuff, so we're going to mention them. This sort of trio always tends to go in decks that want to cascade or cast from exile. It's Passionate Archaeologist and Keeper of Secrets, which both deal damage when you cast spells from exile or not your hand.
The Light Blast Fireball, another great one.
Oh my gosh, this card is so cracked.
Yeah.
If you cast it from exile, it deals 5 to each creature you do not control and each opponent.
Yeah, because usually you have to pay the 2 to foretell it and then pay the 6 mana in order to unforetell it, and you can't do that on the same turn, so you have to wait a turn. But if you're just like, actually, I'll just flip into this, cast it now, and it gets the 5 damage bonus right now.
One-sided board wipe.
Yeah, one-sided. So good.
If you're doing Cascade, some 0-drops are also really cool to include because it means that your 1-drops cascade. Like Soul Talisman.
I love Soul Talisman.
It's just a free little soul ring that you can get if you cast a soul ring.
Yeah, I like it because you already have Soul Ring in the deck, so I think the dream is you cast Soul Ring and then you cascade off of that and you cascade into Soul Talisman and suddenly it's 4 mana for 1 mana. I think that's cool. That's pretty cool. So we're going to say First Doctor's going to help us live the dream there.
Yeah. Gru, attack with the TARDIS, cast a Swords to Plowshare, cascade into a Soul Talisman. You're like, oh.
I'll take it.
That went well.
Yep.
And of course, this deck is built around the cascade-ness.
Yeah.
And your primary way to cascade is the TARDIS. So it feels like this deck really wants to dedicate a package of cards to just getting the TARDIS back if it dies.
Yeah. It doesn't need a ton, I feel, because the Doctor can go search the graveyard.
Yes,
when it enters.
ETBs, it can go get a graveyard.
But then that means that your Doctor has to die, has to come back. You have to recast it 3, then 5, then 7, and so on and so forth. And that's probably a pretty big mana investment. So why not throw something like Goblin Engineer or Savine's Reclamation that will already have some other synergies with your deck?
Yeah, just things that'll either protect the TARDIS or make sure that you have some way to keep using it. My favorite was Drafna, founder of Lotnum.
That's cool.
1 and a blue for a Human Artificer Advisor. It has an activated ability that says 1 and a blue, return target artifact you control to its owner's hand. So this is a great one if it gets swords or if it gets exiled in some other way. You can bounce it to hand and recast it. But it also says 3 tap, copy target artifact spell you control. Easy way to get another TARDIS.
Yep. Or another TARDIS trigger that you care about.
No, target artifact spell.
Oh, it's target artifact spell. You're right.
Yeah, you copy the
I should
TARDIS
read the card.
Yeah.
Reading the card explains the card, Rachel.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. You're right about that. We've done plenty of stuff on that.
Jeskai, Cascade, pretty neat. We haven't seen, it's usually Teamer when we're doing Cascade things. So it's cool to see, to add white to that mix, see like what kind of cards are good there. I loved getting Vega in, but you could definitely go in another direction, a more flavorful direction if you want to add the First Doctor's actual companion.
Yeah, so Barbara and Ian are also the First Doctor's companions. They're Susan's teachers, I think, but they don't really have any sort of synergy, like, at all. But I like Susan Foreman in this. It's the 1 in a green. If you would Planeswalk, instead look at the top 2 cards of your planar deck, put 1 on the bottom, and then 1 on the top, and Planeswalk to there.
Planeswalk Scry.
Yeah, Planeswalk Scry.
Doesn't do anything. We're not playing Plane Chase, but
yeah,
you know.
You can tap and add a green. And so I really like this one in that it adds green to the mix.
Yep.
But if you do happen to play Plane Chase, the TARDIS does have an ability that chooses whether you want to Planeswalk. So this could be a really, really fun deck that you could pull out whenever somebody's like, let's mix it up. Let's play Plane Chase. And you're like, I have the perfect deck for that.
I'm ready.
Yeah. And it's a fun amount of, I have a little bit of control over the planar deck, but not a ton.
Yeah.
So it's not a feel bad if you're not playing Plane Chase, but it's just a nice, cool little thing that you're doing if you are playing Plane Chase.
It's also a great curve. I mean, Susan Foreman on 2, First Doctor on 3, and then next turn you have 5 mana because you've cast Susan.
Yep.
So you can cast the TARDIS and get moving.
Yep. And it's the most flavorful, which is the most important here for now.
All right. First is the worst. Second is the best. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
It's good.
I like the first Doctor a lot. The second Doctor is a little bit trickier to figure out.
Yeah.
Let's meet him.
He's 2 white and a blue. Players have no maximum hand size. And at the beginning of your end step, each player may draw a card. Each opponent who does can't attack you or planeswalkers you control during their next turn.
Or permanents you control. They can't attack your battles either. Get out of here.
True. Yeah. All right, Rachel, we're building a battle deck. That's what we're doing.
Second Doctor battles. He looks like a real warrior.
Yeah. And notably, it is a 2/4.
Yeah. So this one's Azorius as well.
Yeah. As are a surprising amount of the Doctors.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
It's like green, blue. All of them are blue, with the exception of the 2 unnumbered Doctors.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's quite intentional because
Certainly.
the Doctor is like at his core good. So
blue is very thoughtful and
Yeah.
is very like mechanical. It deals with time and change and like that's all very blue.
yeah. The Doctor is very old and has a lot of wisdom and is also like a good moral compass. And so blue and white, like as the core of the Doctor, I think makes a lot of sense for a lot of his incarnations.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this card.
We have paired the second Doctor with a green companion this time. It's Leela, Sevateem Warrior. For 3 and a green, she's a human warrior 3/3. It says whenever an opponent draws a card, except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, put a +1/+1 counter on Leela, Sevateem Warrior.
Yeah.
So they pair nicely together. I don't like that they're both 4-drops.
Yeah,
But
that is one thing that I specifically look out for when trying to make pairings is that I don't want them to be the same mana cost because then when I get to 4 mana, I always have the issue of, all right, now which one do I cast? It's
Yeah.
not a curve from this into this, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and I like that there's a little bit of synergy between these Doctors. You know what the deck is doing. It's like I'm giving my opponents things and I am profiting from it. So
And
it's a little bit of a green, like a band group hug type thing.
Yeah, everybody's drawing cards in this deck.
For sure. And because everyone's drawing cards, we want to make sure that we're getting something out of everybody drawing cards, which means we're starting with another 4-drop Smothering Tide.
Yeah. What if we put Smothering Tide on our deck, Rachel? That would make it better, right?
That seems good.
That seems good.
It does seem like fewer people will take your card draw, but
yeah.
that's okay. You still get an extra card draw, and that's great.
Yeah. What if we put, hear me out, let's put Consecrated Sphinx in.
Ew.
Yeah, would that make the deck better? I think it
That
would.
seems probably good.
Yeah, let's do that.
They're gonna be like,
Hot takes.
So if
put
I
Commander
draw a
Staples
card-
in this deck.
So if I draw a card, you draw 2, and I can't attack you,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna draw. At least that's what you should do.
Yeah.
I also like Council of 4 in this kind of deck. This is whenever your opponent, or whenever a player, draws their second card during their turn, you draw a card. Whenever a player casts their second spell during their turn, you create a 2/2 white creature or knight token. So this isn't triggered by the second Doctor, but it goes along with the same kind of second draw thing.
Yeah, the recently printed Fairy Mastermind could go in here as well. It's a really interesting conundrum because you feel like you don't want to give your opponents extra cards in order for the second Doctor's thing to trigger and for them to choose the thing that you want. But the deck also feels like, well, if you're not building around making your opponents draw 2 or more cards, what are you doing?
What are you even doing?
What are you even doing?
And the answer is you're drawing 2 cards.
You're drawing 2
so
cards.
So maybe we can trigger some things off of that and let your opponents just do whatever they're going to do.
Yeah, like a good old Min Wily Illusionist.
Yeah, I like Min in this deck. A lot of the Doctor Who cards tend to be expensive and permanent based. So something like Min that says whenever you draw your second card, you create a blue illusion that gets buffed for the number of illusions you control. And when it dies, you can cheat something into play with mana value less than that illusion's power.
Gives you a really good payoff for being able to draw those extra cards.
Yeah, it gets some extra lands into play. It gives you some more blockers. It just gives you a more direct plan. And there's a couple of cards that benefit when you draw your second card.
Yeah. We've got Ethereal Investigator. I love that. Joel Rail. That's when you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/2 green cat.
And she's got a very powerful overrun. That's 4 green green. Until end of turn, creatures you control have base power and toughness XX, where X is the number of cards in your hand.
Yeah, if you just have like this and a Min and a couple of things that are making people draw extra cards, you can win pretty quickly. Just a few turn rotations should get you there.
And you have a whole grip of cards. So hopefully that will help. There's other cards that make tokens when you draw your second card for turn. Alondra Skydreamer does it and gives you a big overrun if you've drawn a ton of cards in one turn. Prince Imrahil the Fair also makes tokens as well.
Yeah.
My other thought for this deck was it protects planeswalkers.
Yeah, because it does the thing when it says you can't attack the player or permanents that player controls. We were joking about battles earlier, but planeswalkers, that's a very relevant thing.
That's a tough decision.
Yeah.
Right? Like if your opponent has 2 planeswalkers on board and they say you can draw a card for completely free, but you can't attack my planeswalkers in any way.
Yeah.
That's a really tricky spot, especially if you're like, well, I don't have any creatures that can attack them right now, so I might as well just draw the card.
Yeah.
But now if you're the only player that can attack the planeswalker, now you're down a card. You're like, what?
Yeah. It feels to me like the correct thing to do is to not draw the card if you have creatures that are planning on attacking.
That could possibly
attack.
Yeah.
Because there's just too many tricky things that can change from turn to turn. That's just being like, actually, I'm not going to attack you until next turn is kind of a hard contract to sign yourself into.
It's pretty tough.
Yeah, I don't love doing that.
But you're still getting that free draw, so you're okay with that. Like, honestly,
perhaps,
it feels like a win to me if your opponents don't take the free draw. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're offering them a free draw, and you're getting that draw anyway, regardless of whatever they do. So if they don't take, like, if they don't draw, then you're just getting a free draw with none of the downside from your commander.
Yeah, and because the commander says players have no maximum hand size, it can't possibly be because, oh, well, I'll have to discard a hand size now or something. Like, I already have lots of cards.
Yeah.
You could very easily use that card for something.
Yeah. So I sort of like this combo as a Bant Planeswalker list, which is not really something that we've seen before. I mean, there's like Atraxa.
What an interesting like list to put together. You show up to your local game store at F&M and be like, all right, here's my Doctor Who Planeswalker list.
Second Doctor and Barbarian, and the first spell you cast is Teferi. You're like, what is happening?
I mean, I guess you're traveling through time.
He meets a lot of people.
Yeah.
All right, he's friends with Elspeth.
Magic Planeswalkers just happen to be part of it.
He and Oko are buds.
Yes, let's put Oko in the deck. Great idea. Okay, I'm liking this idea a little bit less now, Rachel.
Yeah, it's pretty fun, huh? One that I noticed about this is at the beginning of your end step, each player may draw a card. Each opponent who can't attack you during their next turn.
Yeah.
So a sort of strange thing that you could do is strange. I don't know. Planeswalkers extra turns, not strange. But like you could cast an extra turn spell.
Yeah.
And if they don't accept on the first one and they don't accept on the second one, now you have 2 free cards. That they had to like deny because it's until their turn.
Ideally, you are doing more powerful things than just drawing a couple extra cards if you are playing extra turn spells.
Yeah.
That being said.
But they're good with the Second Doctor.
Yes.
Anyway.
Hottest take of the entire episode.
Have you guys heard of extra turns? They're powerful in Commander.
They're really good, and if you play them with Planeswalkers, you can use Planeswalker abilities twice. Pretty cool.
Whoa. Wow. These are big brain moves. All right. The final thing that I thought a direction you could take him is stuff that is like either Monarch stuff or initiative cards. That say like, you can have this card if you don't attack me, but I have the initiative, so do you want that?
Yeah.
They make choices in terms of like, do I want this guaranteed card? Or do I want to take the initiative?
Yeah, that's super interesting with Monarch and stuff because you're like, oh, I want to take the Monarch because I want to draw the card.
Yeah, you're like,
well, just don't attack and draw the card.
You can have the card right now.
It's fine.
You don't have to attack me.
Yeah, it makes it so that the decision is a lot more interesting, I feel.
Right, and I think that's how ultimately the Second Doctor is going to get built. Is it makes that last choice a choice?
Yeah.
Because you don't really just want to be like, everybody draws extra cards all the time because it's a May ability, even if you can't really punish them.
Yeah, people will always choose what is best for them in that situation. If they are playing a Spellslinger deck, they're probably just going to draw the extra card and not worry about attacking you and just kill you with the card advantage that they just got.
Yep.
So
give your opponents an opportunity to choose incorrectly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so the Second Doctor and Leela aren't exactly friends.
Yeah. So I think she's from Fourth Doctor era. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But
I don't know.
No, I meant comment section.
Oh,
yeah.
Great.
Comment section, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm right, I'm the best. But
I nailed it.
Yeah. So probably the Second Doctor is most well known with Jamie McCrimmon. So he's a 2/2 trampler for 3. Whenever you cast a historic spell, Jamie gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is that spell's mana value. Now, this is a cool card. I like this card a lot.
Oh, yeah? Notably, Jamie is green.
Yes, Jamie is green. But I feel like if you pair this with the Second Doctor, it is now no longer a Second Doctor focused deck.
Yep.
It is now a Jamie focused deck, which I'm not opposed to. And the Second Doctor, because he is drawing people cards, can function as he's just there as a just in case you need it.
Yeah.
Like I've seen, this is a little bit confusing given that we're talking about Jamie, but Jamie our writer.
Jamie at work. That's my favorite thing about these Doctor Who decks is they've introduced,
just people.
They've introduced just like Susan the Magic card.
Susan the Magic card. Yeah. But Jamie, like writer Jamie that works here, he has a Kaneos and Tiro of Meletis just multicolored deck. And Kaneos and Tiro just kind of exists. It's not a group hug deck. It's just there to provide incidental card draw when you run out of stuff to do, and just so happens to have a lot of colors in it. So I feel like the Second Doctor can fulfill a pretty similar role. If you have one of the companions that you feel like, yeah, I really want to build around that, and you're leaning towards white and blue as something that you possibly want to do, I think the Second Doctor is probably a good choice to go with that.
Yeah. Good generic card draw value with a little bit of protection, you know, if your opponents want to take the devil's bargain.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to number 3.
Number 3, the Third Doctor. 2 green and a blue, not white this time. He's got Trample, and he has +1/+1 for each non-creature token you control. And when he enters the battlefield, you make your choice of a clue, a food, or a treasure. He's a 2/2.
So
tokens.
Yeah, this is a clue and treasure and food deck. You're trying to make as many of those tokens as possible. And luckily, there is a Doctor's Companion that will help you out in that. Sarah Jane Smith is the Doctor's Companion we've chosen. She's 1 and a white for a 2/1 human detective. Whenever you cast a historic spell, investigate. This ability triggers only once each turn.
Yeah, so she's just helping us get there with that. Add an additional, make a token of whatever it is. So in this case, it's a clue.
Yeah. I mean, this deck is fairly straightforward, and this is the kind of deck we've been talking about a lot lately.
Yeah, this deck kind of already exists.
Yeah, Bant, make a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Is fairly common. And it's often in green and blue. It's often white, a little bit less so.
So that is a more interesting, direction we can take it. Obviously, there's multiple Doctor's Companions, so if you have a color that you specifically want to add to this strategy, you can do so.
Yeah, red is very common for making a ton of treasures. I liked Sarah Jane Smith because the historic thing actually works pretty well with the strategy. So I focused around cards that make up tokens that also trigger Sarah Jane Smith, like Old Gnawbone, for example.
For whatever reason, is a legendary creature. I keep forgetting, oh yeah, you can run this thing as your commander if you really want to.
Old Gnawbone, for those who haven't had the pleasure, says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create that many treasure tokens. The Third Doctor is going to be a big lad.
Yeah.
When he deals combat damage, you will make a ton of treasures, which will double his power.
Old Gnawbone is one of the most swingy cards
to
come out within the past couple of years.
It's just a win the game button. It's wild.
Yeah, you play it and you're like, oh, he doesn't even have to attack.
No.
Just a creature has to attack.
Like the Third Doctor.
Like the Third Doctor, who has Trample. Keep that in mind.
Yes. Old Gnawbone is legendary and will trigger Sarah Jane Smith. Make a clue, you know? That's
why it's good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bootlegger's Stash is also a big historic permanent. It is a 6-mana artifact that says lands you control have tap, create a treasure token. It'll trigger your commander. It'll turn all of your lands into treasure engines that also buff your commander.
Yep. And Academy Manufactor obviously goes in this deck because you are making those things anyway, and it'll say, actually, I'll just make you 3 tokens every time you make 1 token.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, just turn 2, Sarah Jane Smith. Turn 3, Academy Manufactor.
Oh, that's
make
gross.
It blue.
That's so gross.
You don't make 3 off of the Sarah Jane Smith because it's a cast, and Academy Manufactor isn't there yet. But now you have your first clue. Then you cast the Third Doctor. You make a clue, a treasure, and a food from the cast trigger. And then he ETBs, you make a clue, a treasure, and a food.
From Sarah Jane.
And immediately your commander is a 9/9 on turn 4.
That's pretty good.
It's a pretty good curve.
I like that a lot.
That is a comfortable
You know what? This card might be good.
Curve.
Hot take.
This is, he's going to be really, really big. For sure. This is a Doctor Who flavorful one, the City of Death.
Oh, yeah.
And helps make your commander bigger. It is a saga that you cast, trigger Sarah Jane, you make a clue, then ETB, create a treasure token, and then on chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, you create a token copy. That's a copy of a non-saga token you control.
Yeah, I actually think this card is quite good.
I think it's pretty good, especially if you're building around tokens, and you're like, I don't know.
Which this deck is.
yeah, which this deck certainly is.
But yeah, even aside from that, I know this isn't in the 99 episode, but I just wanted to say that card's good and I like it a lot.
City of Death is cool. If you're making tokens, it's great to make twice as many tokens.
Put in Parallel Lives.
Anointed Procession.
Anointed Procession.
Mondrak triggers your commander.
I keep forgetting about that one. It's too new. It hasn't stuck in my brain as put this in with everything with Anointed Procession.
But this one is a historic permanent.
Yeah, that's true. I love little things like that when you're trying to build a deck and you have maybe a choice between two cards and one just fits the deck's theme a little bit more. So I like that a lot.
That's definitely the big thing here. I think if you're building around Sarah Jane Smith, the deck is focused on historic permanents.
Yeah, you're skewing a little bit more towards those legendaries and artifacts.
Because there's so many ways to make treasures and clues and that kind of thing now. So this sort of zeroes in your synergy a little bit.
City of Death is a saga, which is also historic.
Rachel,
so smart.
Look at us. Yeah, there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with this commander. We've talked about this kind of thing a lot. The win con is fairly clear here. Make a ton of tokens, swing with your huge commander. But if that doesn't work, you can make those tokens huge too. Rise and shine.
Yep, just overload it, make everything big and massive, attack with all your tokens.
Yep. Pretty good. Cyberdrive Awakener does the exact same thing. If they happen to kill your commander, which they certainly should, you have backup win cons in your pocket.
Then you can recast it and make more tokens. So, they're just helping you.
That's it. They're helping.
Yeah.
So who is the commander that should, who's his actual companion?
I mean, Sarah Jane is actually a companion that traveled with the Third Doctor.
Nice.
But it was a little bit towards the end, and Sarah Jane was mostly known for Tom Baker, Fourth Doctor.
Yeah.
So Joe Grant was probably the most well-known Third Doctor companion, but it doesn't do much with this Doctor.
Joe Grant is a white human soldier. She's 2 and a white. Each historic card in your hand has cycling 2 and a white. Whenever you cycle a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Joe Grant.
Yeah, she's part of units, if I remember
she has
correctly.
a motorcycle. If you didn't,
cycling. Super cute. I love it. I see you, designers. Good job. But it just doesn't pair well with the token strategy that the Third Doctor obviously wants.
Yeah, if you're building a cycling deck, you really want more graveyard synergy, or you want more card draw synergy or something. So it's a little bit in another direction. But if you want to go, you could build around Joe Grant and use your commander as a backup.
You could do the cycling thing and do Drake Haven and then make lots of tokens that way and then make your commander bigger. Nope, it's not. You can't do that because it says non-creature tokens. Dang it. I almost had a good idea there, Rachel.
Almost. They thought of that.
They thought of that. All right, somebody in the comment section, please tell us how to make this deck work. Because I sure don't know.
We are going to skip ahead a little bit to the 7th Doctor. That was what we just talked about, the 3rd. Yep. So the 4th Doctor we'll talk about in the Precon upgrades.
Yep.
The 5th Doctor, I believe, is in the most powerful episode, as is the 6th, which means we're on to the 7th.
Wow. All right. We skipped a few. All right. The 7th Doctor, Sylvester McCoy over here, is a little interesting. 3 white and a blue. Whenever he attacks, choose a card in your hand. Defending player guesses whether that card's mana value is greater than the number of artifacts you control, and if they guessed wrong, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. If you don't cast a spell this way, investigate. And he's a 3/6. Okay, so that's a lot of words.
Yeah. Let's play the game.
Yeah.
So you've got a 7th Doctor. You've got 4 artifacts in play.
Yep, I'm going to attack you, Rachel. Boom. All right, I'm going to choose this card in my hand. Rachel, does this card cost? Is it more than 4? Yes.
I feel like I have to guess more than 4. I'm going to guess greater.
So you think that it's more than 4?
I think it's more than 4.
Okay. It is actually a Worn Power Stone.
You get to cast it.
I get to cast it. Hooray! Good value there. This card's broken, right, Rachel?
No. The 7th Doctor, 'Cause 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 the 7th is very, very tricky to manipulate. He's a 5 mana Azorius commander that has to attack and have artifacts in play to do anything.
Yep. But the one thing could be cast a cool thing.
Or he could attack and make a single clue.
Yep. But then you can use that clue to increase your artifact count and try again later. Or you could draw a card and try again later.
Wowee!
And then you could cast another spell next turn.
So we need a little bit of gas next to the seventh Doctor, because he's sort of a slow engine, a fun game, but a slow engine. So we picked one of my favorite artifact companions.
Yeah.
It's Nissa of Traken, 3 and a blue for a human scientist. She's a 3/4. It says you have no maximum hand size, and whenever Nissa attacks, sacrifice X artifacts. When you sacrifice 1 or more artifacts this way, tap up to X target creatures and you draw X cards.
Yeah.
Huge engine, and helps you play the game a little bit better with your commander because you can control the number of artifacts you have.
Yeah. Not only that, it taps things down.
So your commander doesn't die in combat.
Yep.
He's a 3/6. He's like kind of hard to block down.
Yeah. Like, he'll be easy enough to block, but it's going to be a little bit trickier for people to block enough to be able to kill him, because 6 is pretty high toughness.
6 is serious toughness.
That is some
and he
serious
needs
toughness.
every toughness.
Yeah. But yeah, I like Nissa a lot. I was working on the Game Nights episode that you all
Jimmy
played.
just trounced us with the Nissa.
Yeah. Every time I was like, that card does what? And draws cards and taps everything down, and you have no max hand size, so I don't have to discard. Awesome.
I mean, it's a huge
Really
payoffs for these clue tokens.
Yeah.
Like if you're playing a deck that just wants to develop a bunch of stuff, Nissa says, oh, all that stuff, now that all of that stuff is cards, and I can hit for 3.
Yeah. And I can
or more if it has a
probably
Hero's
more.
Blade on it.
Yeah. Heck, you could pair this with the Third Doctor and be like, all right, all the stuff that I'm making, I'm now going to turn that into cards and tap all your things down, and you can't block my Third Doctor, which is huge.
And has trample. Kabak.
Yep.
Nissa's great, and I think you could definitely build this deck focusing on what Nissa does. The 7th Doctor is a super fun game, though, and we wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
So there are moments in numbers of artifacts that you have where the game is extremely easy for your opponents to play. Like if you have if you have 1 or 2 artifacts, then your opponent's like,
you guys more.
Yeah, it's definitely greater,
it's
right?
Definitely more.
And you're like, it's a soul ring. And I was like, you guys have a soul ring for free?
Cool, great. Congratulations.
Good job.
You did the thing.
And then once you have a ton of artifacts, once you have like 10 artifacts or something, then you guess it's less.
Yeah.
Because it's very unlikely that you have a 12 drop in your hand.
Yeah.
Although, if they do have a 12 drop.
Like a Blightsteel Colossus or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a Kozilek.
Yeah, there's always...
Not a Kozilek. Is there a 12 mana Kozilek?
Yeah, I think Kozilek's 12 mana.
He's 10.
10 mana?
You know, a Ulamog.
Yeah. We said that the first time and definitely did not do anything other than that. But yeah, I think that you have to get pretty high in artifact count for me to not fear the fact that you could drop a big scary thing onto the battlefield. Because I feel like if you have even 6 or 7 artifacts, there's always the possibility of being like, yeah, but what if you have an Ugin?
Yeah.
Right? There's always that possibility that you just have an Ugin in hand and you can play it for free. But
if you have 7 artifacts, do you guess greater or do you guess lower?
Well, that's the interesting part.
Yeah.
I think that, because we were talking about this a little bit before, but you were saying like, I think I only want it to be like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And then once you go past that, you want to start sacrificing artifacts, which you definitely can. But I think the game is still very interesting at that high cost.
Like 7, yeah.
You just have to build your deck in a way that you have that threat. Because then once you have that threat, then people will always, always, always have to be afraid of that threat.
Right. If you're building this deck, you need high CMC stuff.
Yeah.
Because I do think that you want to live at like 6 or 7 artifacts on the battlefield. So your opponent can be like, now I'm going to call your bluff. I'm going to guess lower. And you're like, ha.
Yeah.
You know, Ugin or Blightsteel or something huge.
Yeah. And you don't even have to do something like that is a huge big bomb. You could do something like a Dig Through Time or a Treasure Cruise, which you can functionally cast it for less than the 8 mana that they cost. But if people are being like, all right, guess, is this more than 5 mana? Or because I have 5 artifacts in play? Who's to say? And it's a Treasure Cruise. Cool. You can just treasure cruise for free.
Take that
Yeah.
without having to delve. Like a commit to memory.
Yeah.
Is like commit to memory is naturally a 10 mana value card, but you can cast your commit for free, I suppose, and you can get value out of it, but you need to make sure that your deck does have these 12 drops, does have Kozileks, does have Blight Steals, and just big things so that when your opponents guess wrong, you benefit. Because this is a lot of steps for you to go through to have a 5 mana creature and to attack with it and to have artifacts in play, and then you get to cast something for free. So you really need to have a high enough density of that top end that you always have it.
Yeah, I feel like this deck just kind of wants to be built like a big mana ramp deck.
Yeah.
Where
But you have to be careful because you don't want that. Like you can't more than a 10 artifact, you know?
Yeah, but you just throw in like probably more than the average number of 2 or 3 mana rocks.
Yeah.
So that you can get to that top end. So worst comes to worst, your opponents are very good at guessing. You can probably still cast those things anyway. It'll just take you a little bit longer. But I feel like that's probably what this deck wants to be.
Yep. This one's tricky. Definitely tricky to build.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I want to play against it or play with it.
Yeah.
What if I build this, Rachel?
You could build it.
this?
I would be excited to see you try.
Is that a challenge?
Yeah. I mean, like this is so tough to make work, right? Like your deck needs to have such a high curve, and then you need the artifacts to be able to even make the game a game. It just asks a lot of you.
But there's so many artifacts.
But the payoff is super fun.
There's artifact lands. There's so many mana rocks that we can possibly throw in this.
But then you can't go over the top.
Well, you can eat them with Nissa.
That's true. You could eat them with Nissa.
You can eat 'em with
and
Nissa.
then Nissa's super powerful.
Yeah. And if
just build around Nissa.
If you have 10 or more artifacts, you're doing fine, Rachel. You don't need
No.
this game. You don't need to eat all the artifacts.
I want to cast it for free. It's more fun if it's for free.
Play the game.
You cast the Kozilek for free. Pass with 10 mana open. I have nothing else.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nissa isn't the best flavor companion for the Seventh Doctor. Who do you go with if you want to pick his actual companion?
So Flavor Flea, of course, we want to go with Ace, Fearless Rebel. When Ace attacks, you may sacrifice an artifact. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Ace, and then it fights up to 1 target creature defending player controls. And Ace is a 2/2. So Ace adds green to the mix, which I think makes it a little bit more interesting as well, because then you have Green's big top end to add to the mix, which is a lot of fun.
Apex Devastator.
Apex Devastator.
Cascade.
People always have to be scared of the possibility of an Apex Devastator if that is in your deck, and you're like, what could it be? Could be anything. They'll almost always have to go over, and then you can really mess with them. But Ace is really cool because not only the green that it adds, but it still eats those artifacts and is able to control them a little bit, and also does the thing of it's able to fight other creatures your opponents control, so it can help clear the way for the Seventh Doctor.
Yeah. Little bit of interaction in the command zone goes a long way.
And she's got a baseball bat.
She does. And she could eat her own baseball bat to fight something?
I don't think that's the flavor, but
you could.
Sure, I think she's throwing it.
I'm pretty sure that happens in Doctor Who.
She's hitting a Dalek in the art.
She swallows her baseball bat.
We'll pretend that's how that goes.
That sounds cool. All right, we are moving on to the 8th Doctor. He's from the movie, right?
He is from the movie.
Okay, so he's just a blip of a Doctor, but he is a 6-mana commander, also Azorius, 4 white and a blue for a 4/4 Time Lord Doctor. When he enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. Then, once during each of your turns, you may play a historic land or cast a historic permanent spell from your graveyard. If you do, it gains if this permanent would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. Okay, so the 8th Doctor is sort of like a once per turn Muldrotha for historic permanents.
But with white.
Yeah. And there's definitely some stuff that you can do with artifacts, and we'll talk about that in a second, but I wanted to talk about this companion, and I think it's kind of neat with the 8th Doctor, so we're going to do something a little different.
Okay. Hit me.
It's Ian Chesterton.
Okay.
You know Ian? He's a 2 and a white for a human scientist. He's a 2/3. It says each saga spell you cast has replicate.
Oh, yeah.
The replicate cost is equal to its mana cost.
Interesting. So you're saying a saga deck is how you feel like this wants to be built.
I think it's cool. Azorius Sagas is really interesting. You get a lot of proliferate stuff going on in those colors.
Yeah.
But sagas naturally send themselves to the graveyard and have a little bit of a slower clock.
Yeah.
So the 8th Doctor can cast one thing per turn from your graveyard. And it feels like Ian really lets you take advantage of that, where you're like, all right, I'm going to cast one saga from my graveyard, but I'm going to replicate it 3 times.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get like 3 sagas this turn. And it feels like a bigger moment than...
But not the moment.
Yeah, that's true. That's something else entirely.
That's something else entirely. Doctor Who jokes. You got 'em.
So as opposed to like this, it could be like an eggs deck, but then you can only cast 1 egg from the graveyard with your 6 mana commander.
I think it's smart design because like with Muldrotha, it's like, hey, you want to cast lots of different types of permanents, but you still want to cast a lot of different things. Whereas with the 8th Doctor, it's saying, please cast one thing.
Yeah.
We want this to be value. We want this to be somewhat graveyard focused, but you're going to be able to recur one type of thing, right? So it could be legendary creatures, could be sagas, could be artifacts. There's different ways to build this, but I do like the saga aspect of it very much, especially since they've been pushing out sagas a lot more aggressively as of late. Like there's just been a much higher mass of them.
And Doctor Who has some really cool ones.
Yeah. So I really like that we can be like, it's a 2-color deck, it's a saga deck, and it doesn't feel like it's shorted anything at all.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the coolest saga you can cast with this. It's 3 blind mice.
This is not from Doctor Who.
It's not, but
notably
it's great with replicate. Listen,
okay.
It's 2 and a white for a white saga.
Cool.
The first chapter is create a mouse.
We love mice.
Yes. Second and third chapter are create a token that's a copy of target token you control.
So make another mouse.
No.
Why not, Rachel?
Because you have replicated 3 blind mice.
Okay.
So you can make a copy of 3 blind mice, and that makes a mouse.
That is sick.
It's so cool.
That's great.
So you can...
I see why this is first on the list now. Rachel's like, all right, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. Boom, 3 blind mice.
3 blind mice.
Replicate 3
And if you cast it for 6, now you've got a 3 blind mice and a 3 blind mouse. And then you make a new 3 blind mouse. And then you just keep making all these mice. And you keep making all of these sagas, and now you just have a herd of token sagas.
That's so cool. Yeah, because this effect is a little bit harder to break because it's not like, it doesn't work with annoyed procession type stuff or like token doublers. So having 3 blind mice that it's already on the field, it is now a token. Hey, let's make another copy of a token that you control. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, we're in business. We're making more of these things.
More of these things. It does have a final chapter. It says creatures you control get +1/+1 keen vigilance until end of turn. So all your mice go like... And this with proliferate strategies, if you can proliferate and just keep making tokens of them, like it can go really fast.
So you make it, you replicate it, say 3 times.
Well, that would be expensive, but you probably can do it.
Okay, replicate it twice, so you have 3 total copies of them. As long as you have
9 mana altogether.
9 mana altogether.
Okay.
You make it, and then it hits chapter 2, and then you make a token copy of, they're all 3 blind mice, right?
Yeah, so you'll have 9.
Okay, and they make 3 mice when they enter, and then you go to the next turn, and then every single one of them, you can also 3 blind mice again, and then they make a mouse. And then after that, it's just exponential.
Yeah.
/ now you're starting that everything that's getting cashed in on that 4th chapter is buffing all of your mice and giving them vigilance.
And maybe maybe all the mice end. Maybe like your opponents figure it out. They oust your command. Your commander lets you cast it from the grave.
Dang, this is really cool.
It's pretty sweet. It has 3 cards.
And 2 of them can be your commander.
The other one that's really sweet with replicate is History of Benalia. Because you can, if you replicate it like once or twice, then you make 3 knights, 2 or 3 knights, make more knights, and then all of your knights get +6/+5 and vigilance.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Not vigilance, they have vigilance.
Being able to do I will cast this one thing, I'm going to cast this one thing, and get so much value off of doing this one thing. Like, it will take a decent amount of mana.
Yes.
But you are doing one thing, and that one thing is big. And
super powerful.
Personally, that's the way I like Commander games to go. I'm going to do this one big explosive thing, boom, and it's really cool, really awesome. Appreciate me. Shut me down, kill me if you want, but I did a really cool thing.
I did it! So there's a ton of really sweet sagas. I think my favorite from Doctor Who is this one.
Trial of a Time Lord?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 1 white. Chapters 1, 2, and 3 are exile target non-token creature and opponent controls until Trial of a Time Lord leaves the battlefield. And then chapter 4 says, starting with you, each player votes for innocent or guilty. If guilty gets more votes, the owner of each card exiled with Trial of the Time Lord puts that card on the bottom of their library. Interesting.
Yeah. So
if you can replicate it, you can be like, all right, that's all under Trial of a Time Lord.
Next turn.
So you're taking the entire board, and then the entire board is just on trial.
Yeah.
And you have to vote.
Like 4 times.
It's like, that Academy manufacturer, it's guilty. Guilty.
This deck wants a Serra Sanctum so bad. So bad it wants a Serra Sanctum, which you can play from your graveyard because it's a legendary land, right?
Dang. This is a sick deck.
Yeah.
I want to build all these decks now.
I know, it's pretty fun.
Can I just build all these decks?
So that's the Saga version of this deck. But like we said, if you're building this deck, you want to build around historic permanents generally.
Yep.
So you want your ramp to be based on historic permanents. You want your card draw to be based on historic permanents. And while I don't think this is a great deck for like a dedicated artifact combo strategy, like you just kind of would rather have Emery or something.
Yeah.
I do think you want artifacts that you could sack and replay for value.
Yeah, just put in like Wayfarer's Bauble and have stuff like that to be more your ramp as opposed to a regular old mana rock that sits around on the board, because then you can possibly get more use out of it. And that's just good deck building. Yeah,
tight synergy makes your deck more fun to play and gives you more options when you're doing it.
Yeah.
I like Throne of Geth a lot. It's a 2-mana artifact that says tap, sack an artifact, proliferate.
Mm-hmm.
So you can sacrifice one of your historic lands. Maybe you're playing artifact lands, so you can play them from your graveyard with your commander. You can proliferate all of your sagas, and you can speed up the clock on any number of enchantments that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention with this is your commander gives it this exile clause.
Yeah.
That says if it would go to the graveyard, you a second time, you would have to exile it instead. But
yeah, it just makes it so you can't reuse it.
But we can get rid of that.
Okay.
By blinking it.
Oh, good point.
And there are some historic permanents that help you do that. That's a Deep Dwelling will blink a creature on end step. And so if you've recasted something like a Linvala, Shield of Seagate, it's a historic creature that when you sacrifice it, all your stuff gets indestructible or hexproof.
Yeah, or Conjurer's Closet. That's an artifact that can do something similar. And I think it's also really good in this deck because you can blink your commander. You can get that ETB trigger, mill 3 cards.
Mill again, yeah.
And then you can cast something again.
There you go. Gives you a second because he's a new permanent after you've blinked him. Although this is on end step, so you probably want some blink stuff going on in the deck anyway, just to shake off that exile clause so you can start really looping your permanents.
What if it's a historic permanent with flash then?
You can
do that. You can do that on your end step. Value.
As long as it's your turn.
Let's put Venser in. We're putting Venser in now.
Cool deck. Definitely doing some neat stuff. I really liked the Ian Chesterton. It's like that's one of the real brain teasers.
Yeah.
There's that, and there's the other saga that gives all your sagas read ahead. Yeah. Is the other companion that I think is really cool.
Yeah. And companion-wise, there's no companion in here that's actually flavorfully correct for the 8th Doctor. Because the 8th Doctor was in the movie, had a single companion, and that was it.
She didn't get a card.
Yeah.
Sorry, Grace.
Yeah. So you can pair it with whatever you want, or you can just have him be on his own if you really want to. I'm not stopping you. Build whatever you want. All right.
We've talked about a lot of doctors, but is this our first non-classic doctor?
I mean,
after we're going to talk about all the...
I think 8th Doctor is still considered classic.
He's still a classic doctor.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about all the modern doctors.
Reboot.
All the reboot doctors after a few words from our sponsors.
Mint Mobile presents The Rite of Belzenlock. With this dark ritual, I summon thee, Demon Lord Belzenlock. Why have you disturbed me, mortal?
Demons know about contract stuff, right?
Indeed.
Okay, great, because I've got this super complicated wireless contract, and I was hoping...
Whoa, hold up. Look, I'm evil, but Big Wireless, they're evil.
Right? They lured me in with this free phone, and now I keep getting surprise fees and overage charges.
I know, dude, it's diabolical. Take it from me, you gotta switch to Mint Mobile. They offer premium wireless for just $15 a month. All plans come with unlimited talk and text, plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can keep your phone and bring your old number, along with all your existing contacts.
Wow, that is amazing. I'm gonna switch right now. Okay, well, that's all I needed you for, so...
Oh, alright.
To get your new wireless plan for $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/command. That's mintmobile.com/command. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/command. Hello, sweetie. I am Bernard, ginger sculptor, and every fall, Eldraine goes cuckoo for my cookies. But all the baking I do for work leaves me little time to cook for myself. Aww. I'm busy mixing, frosting, digging up graveyards for ingredients.
Wait, what?
Thankfully, I have HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. HelloFresh lets me fit cooking into my busy schedule with delicious, quick, and easy options, like my favorite, the one-pan cheesy beef tacos.
Was I a person once?
And with everything pre-portioned and delivered right to my door, it really is a no-brainer. Just like my confections. No brains in there, I swear.
But I have thoughts and dreams.
I love the variety of recipes. And even when I'm trying something new, the step-by-step recipe cards make it so easy, a cookie could do it. Now, if you'll excuse me, a big order just came in. Where'd I put my shovel?
What am I?
Go to HelloFresh.com/50command and use code 50command for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, that's code 50command at HelloFresh.com/50command for 50% off and free shipping.
Late night at the command zone. Josh searches tirelessly for new employees.
Okay, I gotta read resumes, check all the job sites. This is gonna take hours. I know, I'll find someone to do the hiring for me. Wait, but how do I hire them? This is indeed a conundrum. That's it! Indeed! The platform where I can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Their powerful hiring platform has tools that can help me find qualified candidates fast. I'll be shown resumes that meet my requirements immediately after I sponsor a post. Then, people I invite directly are 3 times more likely to apply than if they had just seen us in a search. Yes! I can finally join more than 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent! I am a genius!
Josh okay?
Oh yeah,
He does this all the time.
Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/CommandZone. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/CommandZone. Just go to Indeed.com/CommandZone and support the show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Indeed.com/CommandZone. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. You browsing for some new tech?
Yeah, I'm building Tiamat and ARCHIDEKT. Ooh, how about Zergo and Ojutai?
Did you just drag and drop that card image directly into your deck?
Yep, with ARCHIDEKT, you can drag and drop card images from EDH, Rec, or Scryfall directly into the deck list. No typing required.
That is so cool.
Ooh, okay, check this out. I'm gonna drag and drop Dragon Storm into the deck, and then boom, I'm gonna drop a bunch of dragons on the battlefield.
A 9-drop, huh? Seems ambitious.
It was just for the pun. ARCHIDEKT is the best place to browse, brew, and playtest commander decks. Just go to archidekt.com/CommandZone to get started.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com/CommandZone.
Welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. We are talking about the best doctors in Doctor Who. We are just about to get into all of the reboot doctors, the modern doctors, the ones that you know the best.
Yeah, the 2005 forward. So, of course, we got to start with the reboot man himself, Christopher Eccleston, the Ninth Doctor. 1 blue and a red. He's got haste. Whenever the Ninth Doctor becomes untapped during your untap step, you get an additional upkeep step after this step.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Okay.
So he's Paradox Haze.
Yeah.
Kinda.
But in the command zone?
In the command zone.
That's pretty sweet.
And he's 2 colors.
Nice.
Blue and red.
So an interesting thing about the Ninth Doctor, I think, is he is one of the most open-ended building-wise.
Yeah. You find cards that have to do with upkeeps.
Just upkeep triggers.
Yeah, and that is a lot.
So many. There's like so many enchantments that trigger. There's so many creatures that trigger.
Why can't sagas trigger
they're on main phase.
Silly designers. Why you do this to us?
But it's there's a lot of different ways to take the Ninth Doctor, so we had to pick a companion that can go in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. So we like Clara Oswald. You can pick a color for her. She can be any color you want, and she can double your doctor's trigger.
Oh,
pretty
so the
sick.
Ninth Doctor, when he becomes untapped, gives you an additional upkeep. Clara.
It's, I don't know. They say Clara in the show, but I think that's more British pronunciation.
Because they're British?
It's probably because they're British.
Yeah, we'll say Clara. That's how they pronounce it.
The Impossible Girl.
We'll give you a 3rd upkeep. Seems pretty good to me.
Yeah. And she can pick whatever color you want to throw in there.
The big question with Clara is, what color do you pick? You can pick anything that calls to you, any enchantments that you love. This will be probably an enchantment focus deck is like the best way to get upkeep triggers in.
That just tends to be the case with a lot of enchantments.
It's just often enchantments.
Yeah.
We picked black.
We love black. Give us our Phyrexian arenas.
Yeah.
So we get 3 cards with all these commanders on board.
Broken.
Yeah, Bitter Blossom. We lose 3 and make 3 1/1 fairy.
Yes. So I think black just offers some of the coolest enchantments and gives you a lot of like the big drain, punishy enchantment stuff.
We're going to lose life real fast.
Yeah, we are. But the first question is just the stuff that makes this deck work, because the payoffs, whatever you want to do on the upkeep, is sort of up to you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different options. You can pick stuff that you just like. So we're going to spend most of our time talking about just making the Ninth Doctor work, making sure he gets tapped, making sure you have the other pieces that maximize your upkeeps. So the first thing is getting this 2/4 with haste tapped.
Well, thankfully, that's not the most difficult thing in the world because it has haste.
It has haste. So on turn 3, you can attack with it.
Yeah, but past turn 3, it might become a little bit harder for you to have a profitable, or at least not an attack that kills him
just a
right
safe
off the bat.
2/4 attack.
Because he has to untap in order for him to do his thing.
Right. So I like ways just to safely tap him. And there's a lot of different cards that'll give you value and also tap the Ninth Doctor incidentally.
Yeah.
Imposter Mech is one of the first ones I put on this list. It is a 2-mana clone. It's a vehicle. It's 1 and a blue. It enters as a copy of a creature that an opponent controls, and it's a vehicle.
Yeah. I like
crew 3.
I like the vehicles a lot. Something like even like Smuggler's Copter, which just has
yeah.
crew 1. Like these are good cards that you can play in a commander deck, and people aren't going to look at you and be like, why are you including that?
Yeah.
Right? So like they will do their thing, but also provide the benefit and the upside of being able to get your commander tapped.
Yeah. Just having that value goes a long way. Something you can do is you could put Paradise Mantle on him. Now
he taps for mana.
It is now you tap him for mana. So he's a 0 mana equipment that is equip 1, and it gives the equipped creature the ability tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool.
Yeah, I like the idea of tapping him for mana. You got like Springleaf Drum, things like that. The newer Relic of Legends.
It's this year, right?
Yeah, last year.
That
was last year.
Terrible.
Sorry, I hate to tell you, Rachel. Magic product comes out real fast, everyone.
Relic of Legends. There's also Convoke spells. Like Pylon is a real good black one.
Yeah.
This is a 4-mana instant that kills something, and it has Convoke. You can just tap your commander incidentally and get some value out of it.
Yeah, there's plenty of great ways to get your commander taps.
I saw some things online that I forgot to put in the outline, but I want to mention.
Okay.
They were like, what if I untap him in my upkeep and then I tap him again and untap him and tap him infinitely in my upkeep?
Oh, that's interesting.
Does that give me infinite upkeeps, basically?
No, because it's when it becomes untapped during your untap step.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to mention.
Yeah, so you should not... The untap step literally only has untap and nobody gets priority.
Yes.
Or anything during that.
All of the triggers from the untapping actually go on the stack in your upkeep.
Yes.
So it has already gotten there. There is no way to undo like untap shenanigans in your upkeep to trigger this multiple times.
And this is the case for any similar mechanics, like the inspired mechanic from Born of the Gods. This is how they all work.
Yep. You can't do anything in the untap step. So just one untap.
Yep.
Cool. There's lots of other ways to make more upkeeps. Paradox Haze is one that we mentioned already.
Yeah, this is Paradox Haze in your command zone.
Yeah.
So your deck probably wants to do that. Let's put Paradox Haze.
Put it in the 99
in
too.
the 99.
That seems pretty good.
Sphinx of the Second Sun, I really like a lot because it gives you an additional untap, upkeep, and draw.
It gives you an additional beginning phase.
Yep.
So you get your upkeeps again.
And
right?
and your untap.
As long as you can tap your commander before it, then
you'll untap.
Trigger it again.
Yep.
Seems pretty sweet.
Love it.
Something like an Estrid's Invocation or a Court of Vantress are both enchantments that can copy other enchantments. So you could copy your Paradox Haze. You could copy all your other upkeep triggers. Court of Vantress itself is an upkeep trigger. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, choose up to one other target enchantment or artifact. If you're the monarch, you may create a token that's a copy of it. If you are not the monarch, you may have Court of Vantress become a copy of it, except it has this ability. So in your upkeep, you can copy your Paradox Haze, or you can copy another upkeep trigger, or if it triggers multiple times and you are the monarch, you can keep making tokens of other enchantments.
Yep. Why not?
Seems cool.
Yeah, that you won't have that on that upkeep because the beginning of upkeep has already happened.
Yes.
But if you have additional upkeeps past that, then we're golden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we spent a lot of time talking about getting all of these extra upkeeps. What are some ideas? What can we do with this?
So what if, hear me out.
Yeah.
We did cumulative upkeep deck that gives you more upkeeps, so you have to pay the cumulative upkeep more often than you would otherwise.
That sounds like paying your taxes more often because you like paying your taxes.
So definitely don't include something like Mystic Remora in this deck. Because it will just not synergize the way that you want. But you could, sure. I'm not telling you, no, you absolutely cannot do it.
Go nuts.
I'm just saying I don't think it's a very good idea. But there are a few things with cumulative upkeep that have like a benefit to it, like Braid of Fire or something. Obviously, you'd have to figure out what we can do with that mana. But that can get you a lot of mana really fast.
Yeah, the Braid of Fire has cumulative upkeep. Add red to your mana pool.
So the way that this card used to function with Mana Burn was that it would give you that in your upkeep. You would take a damage if you can't use it, and then you would get 2 red mana. You would take 2 damage if you can't use that, and so on and so forth. So it was a powerful card, but definitely had a downside. Now this card has no downside because Mana Burn doesn't exist anymore. Yep.
Just keep making more red in your upkeep.
Sure.
And figure out a way to use it.
Yeah,
Instants will do it. Activated abilities.
Yeah, if you can figure out any way to use the mana, like this will get out of hand very fast.
Clues, food, any mana sink.
Yeah, because it's happening every upkeep. So it's not just that it's getting bigger faster. You're getting more instances of it.
Right.
So you can get this to happen if you have 2 or 3 upkeeps. You can go from 1 to 2 to 3. Great, that's 6 mana that you just have created.
What I also like about Braid of Fire is it's 2 mana, so it comes down before your commander.
Yeah, it's so easy to play.
Cast Braid of Fire on 2, attack with your commander, then next turn he untaps, gives you 2 upkeeps. You've already making 4 mana.
You're just off to the races.
That's not even true. It's 5. You make 5 red mana in your upkeep and then second upkeep with your commander.
Here at the command zone.
Yeah, pretty. You already have 1, then 2. It's fine. You're making a lot of mana really, really fast. So as long as you have a payoff for that, sweet.
Yep. Yeah,
I saw this one online. I think this one's clever.
Yeah, you do something like Xanathar, where at the beginning of your upkeep, choose target opponents, and you can look at the top card of that player's deck and play that.
Yeah. So also, that player can't cast spells.
Also true. That does come in handy quite a bit. But mostly the reason that you want to play Xanathar is because you want to play it off the top of people's decks. Right. So if you have multiple upkeeps, you can say, I'm going to target you. All right. Now I'm going to target player 2. Now I'm going to target player 3. So if you have 3 upkeeps, you can target each individual player. And now you can just play everybody's deck.
I'm going to play a land off of your library. And I'm going to cast your Brainstorm. Ooh, your Mana Rock. What's this?
Yeah.
Very, very, very cool.
The entire table just becomes your oyster. It can be whatever you want it to be.
You're the kingpin.
Yeah.
Go nuts. He also looks kind of like a Doctor Who villain.
He's a beholder. Beholders don't exist in Doctor Who. I'm sorry, Rachel.
But he looks like one. He's like kind of. Anyway.
He is cool.
This one's hilarious. Descent into Avernus.
So Descent into Avernus. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 Descent counters on it. 2. Then each player creates X treasure tokens, and Descent deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of Descent counters on it. So at the beginning of your upkeep the first time, you get 2 counters, everybody makes 2 treasures. But if you're making multiple upkeeps, then you get another 2. And then it does 4 damage and everybody gets 4 treasures.
Yes, you've made 6 treasures and dealt 6 damage to each player.
If you've played with Descent into Avernus before, you're probably already aware that this card just kind of gets out of hand really fast. Yeah. Like once it gets to about 3 turns, I think everybody's like, what are we going to do about Descent into Avernus?
We're all going to die.
We're all going to die.
We're all going to die if you untap.
And or people have so many treasures that they're like, I'm going to do this giant thing and this giant thing. It's something. It's going to accelerate the game and make the game happen.
Which is fun.
Which is fun. But this is going to get you to that critical point even faster, which I think is really funny.
I really like Call of the Ring. It's 1 and a black for an enchantment. Again, a 2 mana enchantment comes down before you're a commander. And then it says at the beginning of your upkeep, the ring tempts you. Whenever you choose a creature, as your ring bearer, you may pay 2 life if you do draw a card. So this makes your commander the ring bearer, which makes it easier for you to attack with your 2/4, but also will draw you more cards, and it accelerates the ring cycle. So you can get all the way to 4 super fast, and that's when the ring bearer becomes really powerful.
Yeah, and that's super interesting because making it the ring bearer, because your commander is a 2/4, that just makes it hard for people to profitably block it.
Yeah.
And you don't really need those extra tappers in order to get him to have his ability go off. So that's a cool include. I like that a lot.
A little bit of synergy and draw a lot of cards. Anyway, lots of upkeep triggers that you can put in here. Protection Racket is really cool, and that's crazy powerful with just one upkeep. I can't even imagine.
This is another one where
if you have this
on the upkeep and everybody's
upkeeps.
like, all right, let's do the whole thing. Goes all the way around.
Like, again!
Yeah. And you're like, all right, let's do it again.
You could draw 4 cards, deal 11 damage, no problem.
You could put Dark Confidant in here and just start drawing lots of cards, dealing lots
Keen
of damage.
Duelist.
Keen
I
Duelist.
duel you.
Exactly.
I
I duel you, duel you,
again.
duel you.
I duel you again.
I feel like
You're going to lose a lot of life.
Yeah.
You got to be careful.
We touched on this before, but I really think that if black is the color that you choose with Clara, that your life total is kind of going to drop really fast. Any sort of incidental life gain that you can put in the deck to help counteract that would be good. That being said, who cares? Go nuts.
Just use Protection Racket, then their life total will go down with yours.
There you go. Or the Descent to Avernus.
It's just such a funny slug deck. Be like, here's this guy. He's here to punch you in the face multiple times. I love this deck. Ninth Doctor is really cool. Super, super flexible. If you want to build it in a more flavorful direction, you can also pair him with his true companion.
Rose Tyler. 1 and a white gets +1/+1 for each time counter on it. Whenever Rose Tyler attacks, put a time counter on it for each suspended card you own and each other permanent you control with a time counter on it. Obviously, Christopher Eccleston, Ninth Doctor, Rose Tyler is his companion. And if you choose Rose Tyler, you're probably going in more of the suspend direction, which is also a very fun direction. Obviously, the 10th Doctor can do that type of thing as well. But because the 9th Doctor gives you extra upkeeps, that'll help you get things off of suspend even faster.
You remove a time counter every single upkeep.
Yes. So then if you get 2 upkeeps, you'll be removing 2 time counters, and Rose Tyler can just keep getting bigger, Still adds that white for fun shenanigans. So
Pretty sweet.
I like it a lot.
All right. Speaking of suspend, we are going to move straight on to the 11th Doctor. We're going to talk about the 10th Doctor in the deck upgrade. So go check that out and you'll hear all about him. The 11th Doctor is also suspendy.
Yeah.
Deals with timey-wimey. I mean, he's got some weird stuff going on. So let's talk about the 11th Doctor. He's a 1 white and a blue for a Time Lord Doctor. He's a 3/2. Whenever the 11th Doctor deals combat damage to a player, you may exile a card from your hand with a number of time counters on it equal to its mana value. If it doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend. Then he has an activated ability that says target creature with power 3 or less can't be blocked this turn.
Yeah, so
this wants to deal combat damage to put something on suspend, but it's a 3/2, so it never has a productive attack basically ever, even on turn 4.
Yeah, unless the only creature somebody has is like a Llanowar Elves.
So like you
or
need
no creatures, I guess,
to pay the 2 to make it so you can attack with him or have other ways to get him through. And then the thing that you suspend has time counters equal to its mana value, which if you're trying to cast a big thing is a lot of time counters.
Yeah, this is very much not like the Joyra where it's pay 2, put something on suspend, and then
it's only 4.
It's only 4, like static for literally everything you do. So you want to put as big stuff as possible. But with the Matt Smith's 11th Doctor, you put something that costs 10 mana. It'll now take 10 turns.
Or 10 time travels.
Or 10 time travels, whatever.
Yeah.
In order for you to get there. And that's kind of a tall order.
It's really, really tough.
Yeah. And it's completely telegraphed. People will know it's coming. So even if you have some ways to manipulate that a little bit, people will be like, well, I know that that's going to be here eventually. So, yeah, it's a little iffy.
It's a really tough Doctor to build, and which is unfortunate because the Matt Smith Doctor is like,
we love Matt Smith.
It's great. The 11th Doctor is really tough. But we want to talk about him because people love Matt Smith Doctor, and he does the suspend thing, which is super fun.
Yeah, so probably the best way to pair him is flavorfully with Amy Pond, where whenever Amy Pond deals combat damage to a player, choose a suspended card and remove that many time counters on it. And she's a 2/2.
So if she connects, she can remove 2 time counters from something.
Yep.
Which is great.
She also partners with Rory Williams.
Another guy.
He's the last Centurion. Also very cool. Rory's cool. Well, Rory's a great companion. Don't you can't say anything bad about Rory. Sorry, Rachel. 1 in a blue, first strike, lifelink, and
white and a blue.
Yeah, white and a blue. Excuse me. Whenever you cast this spell from anywhere other than exile, you have to exile it with 3 time counters on it, and it gains suspend and investigate. So he's not great, but he is an extra card that can give you value.
Yeah. And he is another attacker to add with the 11th Doctor's ability.
Yeah. But Amy, the most important thing here is that you want to be able to control the time counters and remove things from it. Problem with it is that Amy is a 2/2.
Yeah. She doesn't have any natural elevation, and neither does the 11th Doctor. So they need, you're sort of leaning really, really heavy on that 11th Doctor's activated ability, which is expensive.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't look expensive. It's only 2 mana, but if you suspend, say, a 2 mana rock, you're like, all right, cool. I got that. I put that on suspend with the 11th Doctor, which I had to deal combat damage with, and now Amy removes those 2 time counters from it, and now I get to cast it for free.
yeah, but if you spend 2 colorless mana to make the 11th Doctor unblockable, and then 2 colorless mana to make Amy Pond unblockable, now you just spend 4 mana for a talisman?
Exactly. So I think it's very important to be able to augment that and try to make it a little bit better. So anything that can give double strike, for example.
Huge.
Yeah, Berserker's Onslaught, where attacking creatures you control have double strike. Throw a Fire Shrieker on one of them. I like Berserker's Onslaught a little bit better because it gives it to both, and both are very neat and very valuable.
And very good to have double strike.
Very good to have double strike. So now when you're paying that 2 mana to make him unblockable, it's a lot more valuable because now you're putting 2 things on suspend and you're removing time counters from things twice.
You do have to be careful. A lot of double strike givers will buff power.
Yeah.
And you really don't want to get outside of the range of your commander's ability. Otherwise, the evasion just isn't as strong in the deck. So having stuff like Fire Shrieker or Lizard Blades that don't actually give a buff to either the 11th Doctor or Amy is really good.
It's not too bad if you buff Amy, but yeah, you're right.
You can buff her a little.
Yeah, you're right. It is a little bit tricky because if you have something that buffs something and gives it double strike, well, you don't want to put it on the 11th Doctor, but you want to put it on Amy. But if it's in there, you really want it to be like a little bit modular so it can go on either. So it's tough.
Yeah, it makes it very difficult, but there are ways to do it. I like the equipment, and like Berserker's Onslaught is the best because it just gives all of your creatures double strike and it just lives there. But it is 5 mana. Yeah. Lizard Blades and Fire Shrieker, Duelist Heritage. Those are all pretty easy things for you to send into suspend and start casting earlier and earlier.
Yeah, you just throw like a Sunhome in.
Yeah,
where,
the land.
Yeah, it's a land. It'll be there. You can hit your land drop. And if you ever want to use that activated ability, you can. So not really much of a downside for including it in the deck.
You definitely want a Joyra of the Get-To in this deck. Like we said, you pay 2, you can exile a card from your hand, put it on suspend, gives you more options of what to cast when.
You're probably
keeps your opponents guessing in terms of like what card you could accelerate with Amy. So if you have a ton of things that you could speed up, maybe they don't know exactly what's coming when.
Yep.
I also really like the suspend cards that send themselves back on suspend, particularly with Amy.
Yeah, you love Inspiring Refrain, right, Rachel?
I do. This was extremely expensive and very slow when you have to pay 7 mana to remove counters from it. But if you only have to pay 2 and punch through with Amy, then you can start casting Inspiring Refrain every turn, and you're not spending as much mana on it.
Yeah.
Inspiring Refrain draws 2 cards and then exiles itself with 3 time counters on it. Rousing Refrain adds a bunch of red mana and sends itself back on suspend. Chronomantic Escape says you can't attack me until my next turn, and then sends itself back on suspend. So if you can make that clock a little bit faster, now you're hitting and you're casting Chronomantic Escape every turn. And that gives you some real punching power, some real defense. Yeah,
because turns out in Commander, the most common way of winning is through attacking. So if you can shut that down completely, wow, are you in a good position?
If Amy has 3 power, then you can loop it every turn.
Yeah.
Then you can just keep casting Chronomantic Escape every single turn.
Yep.
So those are, I think, the most powerful in this deck for me.
Yeah. And we also probably want more things that just suspend. So like Soul Talisman. Our good old friend Soul Talisman.
It's back.
Got this. It's back. We're putting it in every single deck now.
So I think these suspend cards are really good because they work with the synergy of your deck, like Inevitable Betrayal, Wheel of Fate. All of these are suspend cards that do not have a mana value.
Yeah.
And you look at Matt Smith and you're like, oh, that's sweet. Now I can exile it from my hand and I can cast it right away. You may not.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't get any counters put on it when you exile it from your hand, so there is no moment for suspend to trigger.
Yeah,
basically.
suspend is looking for the last counter being removed. If there are no counters being put on it in the first place, it cannot fulfill that condition.
Right.
So then you can never cast it for free. So it's a little sad. But because we're doing the suspend thing and we are messing with suspend anyway, we do definitely want those things still in the deck. Wheel of Fate or something like that.
You just have to pay its suspend costs.
Yep, which Wheel of Fate
Totally
suspend cost,
comfortable
totally
to do.
doable.
Yeah,
Ancestral
absolutely
Vision,
doable.
let's do it. Let's draw 3 cards.
Of course, if we're doing all of this timey-wimey nonsense, we need a way to manipulate time. There are some old cards that do it. There are also some new Who cards that do it. So this deck will have probably all of them.
Yeah.
Clock Spinning is a buyback spell that will let you move one thing forward in time or back in time for a single blue or 4 with buyback.
Mm-hmm. There's enough stuff in the 10th Doctor Timey-Wimey Precon.
Yeah.
That if you buy this, you can pull out some of the cards that just don't really fit with the strategy and put in some of these older cards into it, and you have a pretty functional deck. And you can run the 10th Doctor, you can run the 11th Doctor, whatever your heart's desire is.
Something that I didn't think about when we were doing this upgrade or when I was playing it is I feel like a really good upgrade for either the 10th Doctor or even for Matt Smith is Training Grounds.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because it makes the activated ability cheaper for Matt Smith. It's only it can't reduce it to 0, but at least it's only 1. 1 is a lot easier to pay than 2.
Yeah.
And then the 10th Doctor was only 5 to time travel 3 times.
Yeah.
Which is still a lot, but it feels more doable.
And Training Grounds got a reprint in Aftermath.
It did, so it's cheaper.
It's only like $5.
Yeah, you can pick it up right now.
Way better.
And I think it's a really it might be a decent include in this deck. Especially if you are doing like a Rift Elemental is also an activated ability that removes time counters. Yeah. So if anything says time travel on it, it's probably going in the deck.
Yep.
Appropriately, the Wedding of River Song says time travel on
Let's go. We love the Wedding of River Song. We love River Song.
Flavor. Unfortunately, River Song doesn't work particularly well in this deck.
No.
But you can put her in anyway because you know what?
Just make a flavor deck. Actually, straight out of the box, I think they're pretty flavorful decks. Yeah. So if you want a flavorful deck, just play it out of the box. Yeah. If you're looking for something a little bit more constructed, well, that's why we're here.
That's why we're here. You can also put in some cool combat damage stuff. Your commander gets stuff unblockable.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of including some other little guys that just hit and give you great value. Ragavan.
Yeah. Thada Adele.
Venerable War Singer is when it deals combat damage to a player, you may return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of damage Venerable War Singer dealt to that player. It's a 3/3 naturally, so you can give it unblockable with your commander. You can reanimate either one of your commanders. You could reanimate Rory, get him back in here.
Yep,
get him back fighting.
Yeah, I do have a deck that's kind of akin to this. It's Sidar Kondo.
Yes.
Of Jamura.
And a lot of this is inspired by that.
Yeah. So it's 4 color, and then it cares about dealing combat damage. And so the double strike that we're already putting in here does care a lot about combat damage triggers. And so just put in things to have good combat damage triggers. You'll probably be getting them twice. And if you have things that can help get them through, like the 11th Doctor, then we're in good shape.
Even better. Or you can make it so nothing else can attack. I loved the idea of this, like, Matt Smith and the little guys deck.
Yeah. 11th Doctor is here for the little guys.
Yeah. And Meekstone.
Meekstone. I do have Meekstone in the deck.
Says creatures with power 3 or greater don't untap during their controller's untap step. I guess that keeps your commander locked down.
Yeah.
You can hit with Amy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
probably not as good.
It is also pretty interesting because, like, the deck that I have cares about creatures with power 2 or less.
Yeah.
But the 11th Doctor's power is 3. And it synergizes with things that are 3 or less. But, like, no other cards do.
Yeah.
Everything else says, like, 2 or less if it's
yeah.
caring about small creatures. So it just makes it, like, kind of awkward.
It's unfortunate that the deck just feels as clunky as it does.
Yeah.
It feels as mana intensive as it does. And like the win con, even with all the stuff that we talked about, isn't entirely clear.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're giving your 3 mana commander double strike, like eventually you will take someone out with commander damage, but it's going to take a second.
Yeah. Well, what I do in my deck is it has green, and so I'll play something like Vitalizing Wind, which is an instant speed, give things +7/+7. So you're like, this small thing's unblockable, the small thing's unblockable. All right,
They're
can
huge.
you block?
And have double
nope.
strike.
All right, post blocks. Boom. They're huge now. But yeah, there's not really much of that in just blue, white, red
Yeah.
that I know of.
It's a little bit tricky. Maybe this deck just makes them really, really big and says you don't want to block them anyway.
Yeah, I put like Levitation, which is a 4-mana enchantment to just give all your creatures flying.
Yeah.
Just to be able to punch through damage, because usually you'll find a player that doesn't have any flyers.
You'd run Bedlam.
Yeah.
It says creatures can't block.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm attacking with my guys anyway.
Yeah, and you're doing cool things. And maybe you'll have that one thing that goes on suspend, the Chronomantic Escape.
They can't even attack you anyway.
Exactly.
That's super cool.
So who cares if your creatures can't block? People can't attack you anyway.
All right, Chronomantic Escape deck. I love it.
Chronomantic Escape is a good card.
So the best flavor pairing with 11th Doctor is Amy Pond, and luckily they do synergize pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the 12th Doctor. This one's the coolest because he's got a guitar.
He does have a guitar.
You want to pair him with the one on the motorcycle, and you're like,
Yeah.
They don't do anything together, but it's pretty cool. The 12th Doctor is 3, a red, and a blue for a Time Lord Doctor. He's a 4/4. It says the first spell you cast from anywhere other than your hand each turn has Demonstrate. For those who weren't around for Strixhaven, it says whenever you cast that spell, you may copy it. If you do, choose an opponent to also copy it. A copy of a permanent spell becomes a token. Then it says whenever you copy a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on the 12th Doctor. So, a word about Demonstrate before we get into it, because there are some like weird things we're going to talk about with this
Demonstrate
Doctor.
is a very interesting mechanic.
Yeah, so if I cast something from exile, let's say I cast a talisman from exile off the top of my library or something like that. I can choose to copy the spell, and as a cost to copy that spell, I give an opponent a copy. So I could be like, Murph, you can have a talisman.
Thanks, I'll take it.
So Murph gets a talisman, I get a token copy of a talisman and my real talisman. So I get a present for being very generous.
Yeah. The important things are the opponent cannot reject your gift.
Nope.
They must make a copy of it.
They get it.
And they get it first. So you have your original, you copy it, your opponent copies it. Opponent copy resolves first, then your token copy, then your original. So, with that in mind,
let's get into it.
Let's get into demonstrating things.
I love this Doctor's Companion. I think it can do some really cool stuff with a lot of different doctors, but I love it with 12th Doctor. It's Romana the Second. 3 and a white for a Time Lord Scientist. She is a 3/3 with Vigilance and an activated ability that says 1, tap, create a tapped token that's a copy of target token that entered the battlefield this turn.
So notably, any copy of a spell that becomes a permanent becomes a token copy.
Yeah.
So with Romana, you can be like, all right, cool, I made a talisman, great, I'll make another talisman.
Cool.
Awesome.
A tapped version of it.
Wow.
So notably,
We'll still take it.
This build is going to be more permanent based.
Yes.
Because Romana's copies your tokens. So this is like Jeskai, enchantments and battles and creatures and stuff on the board. Again, don't use Anointed Procession in this kind of deck. Your copies become tokens. You're not creating tokens. I guess you could. You create a token with Romana. So like Romana's would be doubled, but the 12th Doctor's would not.
It's still pretty clunky though. Because you need the Doctor, you need Romana. And
you cast the 12th Doctor out, Anointed Procession out the top of your library. Then you make 2 Anointed Processions, then you make a token copy with Romana.
Okay, there you go.
So
done.
you could do it. Yeah, you could do it.
All right,
but
you've convinced me.
Yeah,
Making the token copies of Anointed Processions.
It's pretty good. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about some of the permanents that go in this deck, starting with stuff that allows you to cast from not your hand.
Yeah, so that is one thing that I missed when reading this card for the first time. I'm like, cool, the first spell I cast has Demonstrate. That's awesome. But then I realized, oh, wait, that hoop you have to jump through is you have to cast it
a little higher.
Not from your hand.
A little higher. Yeah.
Got it.
So you need stuff that let you cast from exile or cast from the top of your library or cast from your graveyard.
Yep.
And with permanents, it's easiest to cast things from impulse draw.
Yeah.
So I started with stuff like Professional Facebreaker. That's a great permanent, even better to copy.
Yep.
And it allows you to cast stuff from exile when you sacrifice treasures. But also there's battles and enchantments and all sorts of things that give you cards to cast from exile. Visions of Phyrexia is a great one. Invasion of Kaldheim comes in, exiles a bunch of cards. You can cast them from exile, and then you draw a whole new hand.
Yep.
If you make a token copy of it, you get another battle, exile all those cards, get even more.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Heck, you could even run Yasmin Khan as a companion if you were
Yasmin
like,
Khan.
I'm just having a real hard time getting that first clause to happen. Let's just put Yasmin as the companion. Bada bing, bada boom. You always have access to at least a card.
This cool stuff that you can copy with Romana are many.
Do you like copying things in Magic?
The craziest one, as usual, if you're playing Jeskai, you're playing Jeskai Ascendancy.
This card.
Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Untap those creatures. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card.
I played this deck in Modern.
Yeah.
When this came out.
It's so sick.
This is like the most complicated card.
Yeah, and you can make 3 of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you do, you untap Romana and you can make another copy of it.
Yeah.
So you can cast something else and untap it and make another copy of it.
It seems pretty good, Rachel.
Yeah, if you even anointed procession, you can make like 7 Jeskai Ascendancies, and then what? You know, something sweet.
I don't even want to cast any non-creatures if I have 7 Jeskai Ascendancies. I'm just like, this Swords to Plowshares will make me loot 7 times, and I gotta untap all my stuff.
And they're all +7/+7.
7 individual times. I don't even want to do that. That's just so much legwork.
It's sweet. One of my favorites was Ox of Agonis, because it's a 3 red for an Ox. It's a 4/2. When it enters the battlefield, discard your hand, then draw 3 cards. It also has Escape, which is a cast ability from a graveyard.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to cast from not your hand.
Yeah. It's anywhere that's not your hand. So graveyard, totally fine. You can cast from there. Does not have to be specifically exile.
Ox of Agonis is also really funny to give to an opponent who has more than 3 cards in their hand.
That is funny.
Like, oh, Josh Lee Quay, you've got 10 cards in your hand?
Now
Here's an Ox of Agonis.
No. Now you have 3.
Discard your hand and draw 3.
You have 3 cards. Congratulations.
Hilarious. And you're casting from places not your hand. You're not worried about your hand. So, like Ox a lot. The coolest, well... we have to talk about this one first.
Okay.
We have to talk about this one.
You came to me and you were like, does this work the way I want it to? I'm like, yes, this works exactly the way that you want it to.
Yeah. So if you cast an extra combat spell from somewhere other than your hand and you give it Demonstrate, you give your opponent a copy. You're like, do you want extra combat? And they're like, I guess I can't say no. Yeah. And it's not for them.
Yeah.
It's this turn.
Yeah. So the way that extra combat spells are worded, they are always worded. So World at War is our example. After the first post-combat main phase this turn, there is an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. This is worded so that if you flash something out, it doesn't do something weird where it like creates a combat phase in the middle of somebody else's turn. It is just like, whoever's turn it is, they have another combat phase.
Right.
So basically, you get the original, you get a copy, and then the opponent gets a copy. So you get 3 extra combats for the price of 1.
And World at War has Rebound, so it casts itself from not your hand.
Yeah, that's the cool one. I was looking at this, I'm like, why'd you pick World at War? Oh, there we go. Yep. Yep, that makes sense.
It's pretty cool.
And then this one, I cannot believe you put this in the list.
Murph's mad at me because I wanted to talk about Possibility Storm.
Yeah.
Because it's really funny.
You can read it, Rachel.
I'm going to try. Possibility Storms is 3 red or an enchantment. Whenever a player casts a spell from his or her hand, that player exiles it, then exiles cards from the top of his or her library until he or she exiles a card that shares a card type with it. That player may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then they put all cards exiled with Possibility Storm on the bottom of their library in a random order. So normally, Possibility Storm says you cast an artifact, that goes on the bottom. You reveal until you hit another artifact. You cast that artifact instead. It's sort of a staple in Chaos strategies. But your commander says when you cast stuff from exile, you get extra copies of it. So you get extra copies off of the thing that you cast from Possibility Storm. But what if you copy Possibility Storm from exile and you get a token copy of a Possibility Storm and you give your opponent a copy of a Possibility Storm, and then you use Romana to make another token copy of Possibility Storm. And now there's 4 Possibility Storms in play.
And Possibility Storm is, I wouldn't say the most unfun card to play against.
But if you have 4?
That doesn't make it better.
Yes, it does!
How does that make it better?
If you cast 1 Swords to Plowshares.
Yeah.
Now, the Source of Plowshares goes in the bottom. The first Possibility Storm triggers, you cast that instant for free.
Okay.
The second Possibility Storm triggers, you cast another instant for free.
Okay.
The third Possibility Storm, you cast another instant for. You cast 4 free instants for a
still don't
Source
get
to
what you
Plowshares.
wanted to cast.
But the value.
Yeah, I guess it's not an intervening if clause, so
No.
it just does the thing.
It just
yeah.
keeps going. The
Just keeps
more
going.
Possibility Storms you have, the more free cards you get.
I still don't love this, Rachel.
It's pretty fun. And they can't say no.
I can say no to playing against Possibility Storm.
That's true. You absolutely can. But they can't say no to taking it after they're already in the game.
That's
you
my
know?
new thing. I'm going to walk up to people and be like, all right, I'm playing this Precon. What's your guys' power level? And everyone's going to be like, oh, it's this. I'm going to be like, so do you have Possibility Storm in your deck?
Otherwise,
there is no.
I'm out.
I'm out.
Let's talk about this one because this one's kind of fun.
Yeah.
This is Transcendence.
Yeah. It was like white text. I'm like, I can't
Yeah.
read that, Rachel.
3. White.
Yeah, it's an enchantment. You don't lose the game for having 0 or less life. All right, pretty good so far. When you have 20 or more life, you lose the game.
Uh-oh.
All right, pretty bad so far. Whenever you lose life, you gain 2 life for each 1 life you lost. So you don't want to go above 20 health, otherwise you just lose and die.
Right.
But the funny thing about this is because you can give it to one of your opponents, just give it to an opponent that has 20 or more life. And they die. They
Wow.
insta-die.
Now, you have 2 Transcendence that you have to deal with. I think if you're running Transcendence or this style of deck, you probably have sack outlets to get rid of this thing.
Or you just don't and live with the mistakes
Or you just
that
don't.
you've made.
And then you die to your own Transcendence.
Have you ever played?
Pretty fun too.
Have you ever played Super Smash Brothers and
Yeah.
like you're Kirby and you suck a player into your mouth and you just walk off the edge?
And you're like, you're coming with me.
You're coming with me.
I got more lives than you do.
It's the RoboCop, dead or alive. You're coming with me.
It's pretty good.
Yep, it's exactly what this is.
So you can do some weird stuff with this deck. I also wanted to mention these because Errant Street Artists, they allow you to get more token copies off of your demonstrates.
Yeah, because it's Errant is 1 and a blue tap copy target spell you control that wasn't cast. You may choose new targets for the copy. I always looked at this card and was like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
Like it's in blue and that's not exactly what I'm looking for with that type of effect, but I
Tough
think
in the
it's really
command zone, but if you have a red commander
Yeah.
that's already copying things, this can copy your demonstrate copy and give you an additional one like Romana does.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting home for it. I like that a lot.
Twinning Staff does roughly the same thing. It's like when you would copy 1 or more times, instead copy that an additional time. And because Demonstrate is copying the spell, it does work with Twinning Staff.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a lot of chaos to be had with Romana, with the 12th Doctor. So I did want to talk about it with a couple of different companions because it is wild. So the next one is more of a spell slinger type version and definitely more powerful.
Yeah, it's Adric. I don't know.
You don't know this guy?
Yeah, mathematical genius.
Adric works for me.
Yep. I don't know. He's 5th Doctor.
Adric?
I never watched it.
Adric? Yeah.
I don't remember. Maybe 4th Doctor. I don't remember.
He's a super good companion.
Yeah. He's 1 and a blue. 2 and a blue. Tap is his ability. Copy target activated or triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy, and you can pay 1 and a blue and sacrifice him to counter target activated or triggered ability. I do know this guy dies in the show, so that's
Spoiler
that's why it's
alert.
sacrifice. Yeah, sorry. If you're watching classic Doctor Who, spoiler.
So Demonstrate is a trigger that you control.
Yes.
So you can copy the Demonstrate trigger. And then you have to give out an additional spell, but you will get an additional copy from it.
Yeah, I saw some people going around being like, oh, well, I want to pair the 12th Doctor with Clara because she was part of his arc and was one of his more well-known companions. That doubles triggers of the Doctor, but the Doctor's ability is technically static, but the Demonstrate ability itself is a triggered ability.
Right.
So it's a little confusing. This guy works, Clara does not. Sorry, that's just the way Magic rules work.
Yeah. One is a triggered ability that you control. One is the triggered ability of a Doctor.
Yes.
So this is a more spell slingy version of this. This is blue and red. You're trying to copy as much as you possibly can and benefit from it. We've talked about a lot of ways to cast stuff from exile, so we're not going to go through those. but I think Lear and Gale Waterdeep Prodigy are great places to start because they let you cast instants and sorceries from your graveyard.
Yep, which satisfies that condition that you're looking for to cast things from not your hand.
That'll work. And Johann, Apprentice Sorcerer, is a new one that lets you cast instants and sorceries from the top of your library.
Yeah, and there's lots of fun, cool things that you could put in, and definitely just a simple divination would work. Or you could do something like bonus round. It's 1 red until end of turn. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, that player copies it, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So this is global.
Yeah.
So it does something similar to the extra combat phase, where it's giving it to your opponent is actually a benefit for you.
Yeah.
And if you're doing a Spellslinger type build with instants and sorceries, then this can get really crazy really fast.
So you cast bonus round, you get a copy bonus round, they get a bonus round, you use ARCHIDEKT to copy your demonstrate trigger, you get 2 more bonus rounds. Now there's 5 bonus rounds on the stack.
This is a lot.
And now whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery this turn, they get 5 additional copies of it.
What if you do this?
Seems fairly straightforward.
What if you do this and then cast Thieves' Auction?
You have to resolve them. Those are the rules.
Technically those are the rules of the game. But with the entire table just scoop.
Yeah. I think
the entire table would scoop.
Okay, but what if after this you cast High Tide?
Oh, High Tide is sick.
Yeah, because that's also universal. It says until end of turn, whenever a player taps an island for mana, that player adds an additional blue.
Yeah.
So even if you demonstrate, even if you give that copy away, that makes your islands tap for more also.
That's sick.
This is a wild, weird Storm Commander.
Yeah.
And
It definitely is.
You can do so many crazy things with these, especially when you start getting Magecraft involved.
Oh, yeah. Like Archmage Emeritus, you can cast or copy a spell and then you draw a card. Well, lucky you. You're going to be copying lots of spells with that demonstrate ability.
Careful, though.
It's not a May. You might just die if you do this too much. If you bonus round a ton and then you have an Archmage Emeritus out and you're like, I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah.
Please rethink your strategy and have a Chain of Vapor at some point.
At some point.
or some sort of bounce spell or removal spell.
Yeah. Or you could just, Lightning Bolt. It's fine.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
It's probably okay.
Ral Storm Conduit says whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, you deal 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. Gives you a little bit of a win con here, but also Storm Killing Artist will give you more treasures every time you cast or copy something. There is a way to make infinite Magecraft triggers in this deck with if you cast like a Fork from Exile. So if you cast like a Ponder or something from your hand, you cast a Fork from Exile.
Boo.
Make a token copy. Fork.
Infinites are boring.
Fork. Infinite forks.
I mean,
Forks.
I'm just imagining just a pile of forks.
I don't think that's the way you want to go with this deck. You can. There's easier ways to do it.
Yep.
But I think just using spells that copy your stuff a whole bunch of times, like a Galvanic Iteration, which has flashback and gives you like a bunch of different copies of your instants and sorceries, get you a ton of value and allow you to do some really wacky stuff with this. Just copy a Mana Geyser, give it to your opponent. They'll have 30 red, not their turn, see what they can do with it.
So there's lots of cool things that you can do. But Rachel, what if we want to be mean?
We could be mean.
We want to be really mean.
What if we were mean?
Really mean. Because there is that demonstrate. And as we've alluded to, there's a couple cool things that you can do of just be able to kill your opponent or do something bad with them getting a copy of it.
If we're going to be mean, that means we're adding black.
Yep. So, I mean, technically you can do Clara, but that's pretty bad. It doesn't do much except for...
do anything other than be 6 mana.
It technically copies the ability to put an extra counter on the Doctor.
That's true. Sure.
Push my glasses up.
I guess the forks would give him make you an infinitely big commander, and then you can Chandra's Ignition.
Yeah. But there is a black companion.
Yes. His name is Vizlor.
Yep. I think he's also from Classic Who. I don't know this guy. Whenever he enters the battlefield, you may have target opponent gain control of it. And if you do, it's goaded for as long as they control it. And at the beginning of your end step, draw a card, and then you lose life equal to the number of cards in your hand. So he can be mean. Or if you really want cards, you can keep them.
Yeah.
That's fine, I guess.
You may give him away.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Did you not notice that?
You could keep him. Yeah, I didn't realize you could keep him.
Yeah.
I think Vizslor's kind of funny because you could give him a really big draw spell.
Yeah.
And be like, ha!
It's true. You can give them Vizslor and then be like, I'm going to demonstrate this draw spell. You get to draw lots of cards. Aren't you happy? And
you-
they're like, no.
No.
Not really.
I mean, they do have a bunch of cards and have to last until their end stop. It's not a great plan, but it is a plan. Let's talk about the mean ways that you can use this card, starting with the most confusing.
It's not that confusing. Glorious End?
Yeah, 2 in red for an instant. It says end the turn.
Yeah.
And then at the beginning of your next end step, you lose the game.
So we talked about it a little bit earlier, but the way that it works is that your opponent is the one to resolve first. So you cast this Glorious End, you get a copy, your opponent gets a copy. Your opponent's copy will resolve first. It ends the turn, which means it exiles everything that's on the stack, and everyone discards down to hand size, and ends the turn. Great, so now you have no longer any Glorious Ends that are going to resolve. But now your opponents did, and they're going to lose the game.
On their next end step.
On the next end step.
So they have, it basically says you have 1 turn or you're dead.
Yeah. You play this and you're like, good luck.
Yeah.
Do your best.
And you play a Mystic Sanctuary, you get it back, and you do it to the next player. There's other things that like lose the game clauses on pact spells, pact of negation, pact of the Titan. Both of them say at the beginning of your next end step, pay something if you don't lose the game.
Do this with somebody that is not in your colors.
Make sure that you can pay it.
Also that.
Though,
Also true.
because you will have 2 copies of the pact of the Titan trigger. You will need 10 mana to not die to your own pact.
Yeah.
Pact of the negation is a little bit trickier because you do need a spell on the stack to do it, and then you have to cast pact of negation from exile on your turn. It's a whole thing.
I like that you put this next card on the list.
Because it's a cost.
1 with nothing. Famously, a terrible card.
Yeah.
It's a black instant, discard your hand.
Yeah.
You discard your hand too, Rachel.
Yeah. But you're casting from exile or something. You're good. You don't need your hand.
Yeah, you do.
No, you don't. What are you doing with your hand?
Casting other spells that are relevant to the game. Plain lands.
It is also not a good combo with Vizslor.
No. It's okay. Do the Vizslor, give it to somebody else, and then discard your hand with somebody else.
Yeah, that's...
You're in a multiplayer game. It's fine.
It's a combo.
Yeah.
There's also some weird old black enchantments that you can give players that are basically puzzles that they have to figure out, and you build your deck to play around this kind of puzzle. There's like famously liches and that kind of thing. Forbidden Crypt is an enchantment that says if you would draw a card, return a card from your graveyard to your hand instead. If you can't, you lose the game. If a card would be put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile that card instead. It's 3 black to do. So if you cast this from exile, you can give it to an opponent that doesn't have anything in their graveyard. You will have 2 of these. So you have to figure out how to get rid of them. You need like a Despotic Scepter or something like a Claws of Gix just to get rid of yours. But it does create a very serious clock for your opponents.
There's definitely a build in here that's like a more lichy type build.
I know. I love the idea of doing 12th Doctor liches.
Yeah. I mean, some of the liches are a little bit iffy because sometimes they're like, if they leave play, lose the game. And then if you make 2 copies for yourself, well, good luck.
I gotta protect these. This one's fun. It's Death Pit Offering, 2 black. When this comes into play, sacrifice all creatures you control. Creatures you control get +2/+2.
We didn't need those creatures anyway. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll sacrifice all my creatures, but you will too.
Yeah,
and all my creatures will get +4/+4.
But what if you do that to like the token deck, and then your token deck's like, all right, sure. I'm just going to rebuild, and now all my creatures are buffed.
This is a dangerous deck. We're living life on the edge.
All right. I like it a lot.
12th Doctor is wacky. There's a lot of weird things you can do with him. A lot of really creative builds. That's why we spend so much time on him. But if you want to build it in a flavorful way...
We already determined Clara is bad, so you should do Build Pots. That's whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only build pots, or activate ability that targets only build pots. You may copy it, choose new targets for the copy. This only happens once each turn. So... this would be more like a Zada deck, honestly.
Yeah, this gets you sort of something else. This is closer to the blue-red, like, copies deck. But you want stuff that targets Bill. You probably want a bunch of tokens, right? It's whenever you choose new targets for the copy. Yeah. I guess you could... it gives you more copy triggers, so your commander gets bigger. Yeah, it's definitely closer to a Zada thing, but you're still doing copying spells.
Yeah, you want things that are like, I target this, and it also draws me a card, or something like that, and then you can just like...
Right, you want...
cast a bunch of stuff, storm off.
Seems good.
Enjoy yourself.
Have fun. All right, we have made it through the numbered doctors. The 13th Doctor will be covered in the budget upgrades. We're moving on to the unnumbered doctors.
Yeah, the Fugitive Doctor. 3 red and a green. When it enters the battlefield, investigate, and whenever it attacks, you may sacrifice a clue. When you do, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback to a red and a green until end of turn.
There's a lot of things to balance here.
Yeah.
This is a 5-mana 4/4 with an attack trigger that needs clues to give instants and sorceries flashback.
Yeah, it's interesting that it has to be specifically a clue.
Yeah.
It's not just an artifact. You have to sacrifice a clue, which makes it a little bit more narrow than it otherwise could be.
This is going to be a really tricky thing to balance. There is a companion that helps out a little bit. It's Martha Jones.
Martha.
It's 2 and a blue for a human cleric. When Martha enters the battlefield, investigate. Great, another clue. When you sacrifice a clue, Martha Jones and up to 1 other target creature can't be blocked this turn. Also good. She is a 3/2.
I like how in Magic the Gathering terms, she's a cleric. She's actually a doctor. That's very funny to me.
She's like a she's like an actual, like a lowercase doctor.
Yes. Except she doesn't get the doctor.
No, because that's confusing. She's not a doctor.
She's a cleric instead.
That's pretty fun.
Yep, cute. But yes, she makes clues which can help with this, and also adds blue, which is much more of an investigative clue type color.
And really helps with the instants and sorceries.
Because if you're just in red and or green, then you are really struggling to find any sort of like investigate synergies.
Yeah, or like what are you going to cast, like Boundless Realms?
Yeah.
Like the big instant, you would need big red instants and sorceries, I guess.
Yeah. I think blue just gives you access to most of the stuff that you want.
Really, really helpful. So the first thing we want to talk about is some big instants and sorceries. You want stuff that costs more than 2 blue red because you're sacrificing a clue and you're attacking with your 5-mana commander and you're like still paying 4 mana for it. So you want big payoffs for this thing. And that means big spells.
Yeah, we could do something like Brass's Bounty, which makes treasures equal to the amount of lands you have. A Seagate Restoration, which draws you lots of cards.
I like River's Rebuke, just to clear the way for the Fugitive Doctor. If you're like, this is kind of a wild attack, I'm actually just going to bounce all of your stuff back to your hand.
Yep.
Something cool is Mnemonic Deluge. I think is quite good in this deck. It's 6 blue for a sorcery. Exile target instant or sorcery from a graveyard. Copy that card 3 times. You may cast the copies without paying their mana cost. Exile Mnemonic Deluge.
Yeah, because you're definitely going to want to have things that put things into the graveyard, because otherwise why are you playing a card that gives things flashback if you can't reliably get things into your graveyard?
Yeah.
So Mnemonic Deluge will be like, oh, all right, the coolest thing in my graveyard, I'm now going to do that 3 times, and it all costs the same, 2 a green and a red.
Yep. Really, really helps. Anything that turns this one spell into a ton of spells goes a long way, like an Aminatu's Augury. It says exile the top 8 cards of your library. You may put a land from among them onto the battlefield until end of turn. For each non-land card type, you may cast a spell of that type from among the exiled cards without paying its mana cost. So it just gives you a 3-4 spells for the cost of 2 red-green.
But do you know what the most powerful blue spells are, Rachel?
Yeah.
Extra turn spells.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's put Expropriate in. You can flashback Expropriate for 2 green and a red. That's pretty dang powerful.
That seems pretty good. The frustrating thing about this is like, this is a pretty clunky commander. This is like a pretty low power commander. And the best way to build it, the way to really get that payoff is just really powerful extra turns and extra combats.
Yeah. And that puts it at like such a weird place, because you can't really play it with like lower powered decks because you're playing extra turn spells and now taking up everybody's turns.
Right.
And you're still playing these very, very powerful cards, but at higher end tables, like it's just not going to compete. At least I don't think.
Yeah.
Someone build this and prove me wrong, but
it's pretty tricky to balance. So like, I think you're going to want like probably 1 or 2 extra combat, extra turn spells just to really maximize your commander. But I don't think you want to build this deck fully around extra turns, because it's just like, then you're just playing bad Narset.
Yeah.
And
who wants to do that? You want to play Narset? Go play Narset.
Just play Narset. Narset's great.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not super fun.
we like Narset, but then I'm like, no, we don't like Narset.
But like, I don't know, playing Narset with extra steps just doesn't change it for me.
Yeah, it doesn't make it more interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk. We're going to need ways to get instants and sorceries into the graveyard. Looting spells are the obvious way to do this. Faithless Looting, Cathartic Reunion.
Yeah, there's lots of great red cards that, as an additional cost, discard a card and draw some cards. It just churns through your deck and gets those crucial instants and sorceries into your graveyard.
Something that I thought for this deck, because there's a lot of pieces, I wanted stuff that took up multiple slots, that was either made clues or was a big instant and sorcery or like helped attacking. So I liked the idea of big instants and sorceries that put themselves in the graveyard, which means we're talking about cycling. So it gives you a little bit of value. It gets itself out of your hand without requiring another card. And it gives you a big payoff, even though if it's not like a time stretch or something like that, being able to cast a boon of the Wish Giver, which just says draw 4 cards for 4 mana, is really powerful. And it cycles for 1.
Yeah.
So you pay 1, discard it, draw an extra card, then you can flash it back, draw 4 cards for 4. It's not as powerful as doing a time stretch, but at least it's a tighter package because I didn't have to figure out how to get time stretch into my graveyard.
You're doing a little bit more cycling stuff, which I really like.
And there was some powerful stuff that was printed in Lord of the Rings. There was some really powerful stuff that was printed in Strixhaven.
Yep. Magma Opus. I like that card a lot. It's like 8 mana.
It's 8 mana, and it deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. Tap 2 target permanents and create a 4/4, and then draw 2 cards, which is a lot. And plus, it discards and makes a treasure token.
Yeah, I think this deck wants as many of these types of cards as it can possibly get its hands on.
You really, really want to have a target for when you're attacking, because the last thing you want is to have all of this set up and just
no
be like,
payoff.
I do not have a payoff.
Yeah.
Brutal.
It's just it feels bad. And these can definitely help you like draw into more cards, basic land cycle maybe, to get you some more of the stuff that you need.
All right, we have one last piece of this puzzle, and that's making some clues.
Yeah, we like making clues.
We're going to try.
Clues are good. You can put in like Tireless Tracker.
Yeah.
Sure.
Trail of Evidence says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, investigate. Perfect.
Yep. Lonus Cryptozoologist.
Yeah, that makes clues whenever... This is 2 mana, and it says whenever a creature enters, just make a clue.
Yeah.
And we're paying 5 mana, 4 mana stuff that makes a single clue. It's tough.
I don't know, but this is why I think that blue is just very important to this deck, right?
It's really, really important.
Because you got to have things like this. If the best clue maker in your deck is Tireless Tracker, we have a problem. I
mean, Tireless Tracker is great, but like you can't just have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the strong clue synergy does come from blue. Hard evidence, secrets of the key, just stuff that you don't need to make 1,000 clues. You need to make like 4 over the course of a game. It's a little different than the decks that we were talking about earlier, like the Third Doctor.
Where you just want as many as you possibly can. Just make sure that you have some.
Yeah, like both of your commanders care about sacking it, but they only need to sack 1.
Yeah.
And then how do you close out this game if you're not just doing infinite combats?
Yeah.
Is a big question.
So I think you definitely want...
Or infinite turns.
Yeah, you definitely want something that has like some sort of payoff for what you're already doing. So what you're already doing is you're putting instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. So I really like something like Runechanter's Pike, where equipped creature has first strike and gets +X/+O, where X is the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. And even if you're not ending the game with it, it just helps you to attack anyway.
Right. This solves a problem of like, I need to be able to attack with my 4/4, and it gives you a little bit of extra boost that might close out the game for you. Glamdring was printed recently and does a similar thing.
Also true.
Also helps you cast an instant or sorcery from the graveyard.
Yep. Gives
you another instance of that.
Yeah. So I really like cards like that. Cool.
There's a lot that you can do here. There's a lot of different pieces that you have to balance. If you want to look at other decks that have similar balances, Galazeth Prismari does both instants and sorceries and artifacts. It's a little bit different because it's, this is very clue focused. But yeah, this is not an easy deck to build and make it work in a way that feels smooth. So play
Agreed.
it, test.
Have fun with it though.
Flavorfully, she has no companion.
Yeah. So, Martha, good companion as any.
That'll work. They look like buds. They can hang out.
They can hang out.
They're both doctors.
True. Very true.
All right, we've got one more doctor to talk about in this episode, and he is one of the most powerful.
Yeah, the War Doctor. 2 red and a whites whenever one or more other permanents phase out, and whenever one or more other cards are put into exile from anywhere, put a time counter on the War Doctor. And whenever it attacks, it deals damage equal to the number of time counters on it to any target. And if a creature dealt damage this way would die, this turn exile it instead. Because why not?
Yeah, sure.
And
also
it's a 3/5.
Might as well add another sentence.
Sure thing. More words equal better cards. Actually, that's usually the case.
So the War Doctor is very powerful. Oddly, the companion that I like best with it is Canine.
Canine!
Yeah, he's a little cutie.
Affirmative.
He is a single blue for a robot dog. He's a 1/1, and it says as long as K9 is untapped, other legendary creatures you control have Ward 1. That's great. Your commander is very, very scary.
Yep.
It also has affirmative, 1 and a blue tap. Target legendary creature can't be blocked this turn.
You got to say the negative now.
Negative.
There you go.
Sorry, that's the word one. So both of those just synergize with your commander. Give yourself that free attack if you need it.
Yep. Ward 1's always good.
Adds blue, which is really good for blink synergies if you're doing that, or cascade synergies, which is definitely something we're going to talk about.
And K9's 1 mana. Like,
And look at him!
He's so cute.
He's just a little guy.
And the War Doctor is the most gruff doctor out of all of them. You wouldn't like him.
There's also a really cool move that you can do with K9. We'll talk about in a second.
Okay. I'm interested. I'm
It's
intrigued.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the War Doctor says that you want to send cards to exile or you want to phase them out. You can blink things, but blinking is sort of only one at a time.
Yeah.
So the cards that are most powerful with the War Doctor are ones that check cards in exile. The craziest one is Wand of Wonder.
Ooh.
I love this card.
Yeah.
It also kind of looks like the
Sonic Screwdriver. Sure.
It's got a lot of bubbles and like bibs on it.
You think that's what the Sonic Screwdriver looks like?
Yeah. You have to see that it's the butterfly one.
Yeah.
All right. 3 and a red for an artifact. It's 4 tap, roll a d20. Each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card, then shuffles the rest into their library. You may cast up to X instant or sorcery spells from among cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs.
Yeah.
So X is 1. It depends on how many you can cast based on your die roll.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about the War Doctor is he says 1 or more. So with Wand of Wonder, you are exiling 1 or more, right, Rachel?
No. You have to check 1 at a time.
Yeah.
Because that is how these things just work in rules. So anytime a player, they'll exile the top and be like, is that an instant or sorcery? No. I'll exile another. Is that an instant or sorcery? No. So all of those count as individual check triggers for the War Doctor.
Yeah.
Until they hit an instant or sorcery, which in some decks is a million.
Yeah. And Cascade works in a similar way,
right,
where it's just you exile until you hit the thing. If you see those words until you hit the thing, then it works the way that you want to for the War Doctor. If not, if it's just like reveal cards until you hit something like that, so that doesn't do it.
Nope, has to stay exile.
Yep.
Until. So the cool trick is Flamekin Herald.
Okay.
It says 2 and a red. Commander spells you cast have Cascade.
Okay.
Now you cast the War Doctor.
Okay.
Well, I suppose you could cast Flamekin Herald. You could cast the War Doctor. And now you cast K9. K9 is a 1-drop. Mm-hmm. You can look through your entire deck and be like, "What? I don't have any 0-drops." And you put like 70 counters on the War Doctor. And then attack somebody and bonk.
Wow. Yeah, if you see these 3 pairs of cards together,
it's bad.
It's bad for you.
It doesn't look bad. You're like, what? These are all terrible.
It's a dude with a box. It's a robot dog. What's even going on?
Yeah, it's super dangerous. Also, you could play Possibility Storm.
Rachel, we're not playing Possibility
You
Storm.
could though if you wanted.
We're not playing Possibility Storm.
Yeah, that's fair. It's completely reasonable.
Yeah, that is one thing, is that the War Doctor specifically says whenever 1 or more other cards are put into exile from anywhere, you don't have to be the one that's doing it. Mm-hmm. You can do it from somebody else's deck.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. That works too. You can exile somebody else's thing. You can just path to exile something.
That'll all put counters on the War Doctor.
Easy peasy.
There are a lot of cards that'll also just exile a lot of cards on their own. Mm-hmm. Something like a Phyrexian Devourer has an activated ability that says 0: remove the top card of your library from the game, exile it to put X +1 counter on Phyrexian Devourer, where X is equal to that card's casting cost. And then you eventually blow it up. But with this commander, you go to combat with the trigger on the stack 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0,
so then
0,
you
0.
can just eat as many cards of your deck as you possibly want, and then once you've eaten as many as you want, you get just basically that many time counters. So you could do up to, say, not 100, not 99, probably 80.
Just bunches.
Yeah.
You can exile bunches of your deck.
Just don't do that. Just do like 40 or 50.
Yeah, that'll be
don't
enough.
Get close.
Just get to lethal and then see what they could do from there.
You're good.
If you're exiling stuff from your deck using Cascade or using any of the things that we've talked about so far, there are other cards that also like that. Lelia, the Blade Reforged, uses a lot of these same combos to put counters on herself. Whenever one or more cards are put into exile from your library and or your graveyard, put a +1 counter on Lelia. So she also gets similarly huge.
Yeah, doesn't one-shot people. Still needs to attack and get through, but
also draws you cards, exiles cards, makes your War Doctor a little bit more dangerous.
Belborka also draws you cards. Can be big, possibly.
Feels like this deck wants lifelink as well. I think you're going to be pretty scary. The War Doctor is like a big laser.
Yep.
If you build it correctly, and people will recognize that probably, at least, especially the second time you play it. So some lifelink is going to be important. Basilisk Collar, Shadow Spear will all gain you life off of shooting all of that damage around.
This reminds me of what's the red-white guy from Strixhaven Commander, where it attacks and then deals damage equal to the number of tapped artifacts.
Oh, yes. That card's busted.
Yeah, it feels akin to this, where when I first read that card, I was like, it's fine. And then I saw it actually do its thing. I was like...
You're like, I'll scry 24.
How do I beat this? And
it's really
War Doctor feels very similar.
Yeah, for sure. Dangerous. Keep an eye on it. If you're playing against it. If you're playing it, you're going to need to protect it because it is scary. Winged Boots is great. Gives it Ward 4 and flying. That evasion is also very good. Obviously, Swift Foot Boots, Lightning Greaves, all of those are very good as well. Yeah.
So there is a possibility of doing an alternate companion. If we add black to this...
Things get spicy. So
we can do Vizsla or Clara. With black because it's a triggered ability that we can copy.
It's excellent. Very good.
Love that.
It's very good with Clara.
So once we have black, we can do things like Necropotence, where you're just exiling top card of your deck.
Pay 1 life, exile, pay 1 life, exile, pay 1 life, exile, hit you for this, scan all that life
back. Same thing to the
back.
Devourer, except it's Necropotence, and we already know that's a great card and is, nuts.
You can also put an Ishin in the black version of that, which doubles your attack triggers with the Doctor.
And it is an attack trigger.
Sure is.
That's sick.
It's pretty cool. So that is probably a more aggressive version of this. It's going to be more combo focused and a little bit less cutesy.
Yeah, it gives you access to things like Tainted Pact.
Yeah.
Things like that to just exile a ton of stuff.
Yeah. So the Mardu version of this is probably more dangerous. The blue version of this is a little bit trixier, probably. You can protect the Doctor a little bit better, which I think is going to be important as well.
Yep. Love it a lot.
Okay. War Doctor. He is predictably dangerous.
Yep. Also has no companions, so
not
pick whatever no flavorful companion picks for him.
I picked the dog.
Yep. We love the dog.
All right, as is tradition in these episodes, we are going to talk about our favorite commander from the episode and the one that we think is the most powerful. What is your favorite Doctor that we talked about today?
I put down the 9th Doctor.
Yeah,
but
he's the upkeep one.
Yeah, he's the upkeep one, but after talking about the 7th Doctor and the fun games that you can play with him, you think I'm crazy, don't you?
That card is maddening. It is so bad.
You think it's so bad?
You're good. It's so...
Okay, it's not so bad.
It's difficult to make work.
Yes, there are hoops that you have to jump through, but the payoff is free giant things.
Or free little things, or just a clue.
Free things. It's all free. I mean, you got to pay 5 mana.
It's a 5 mana you have to attack, and you also have to have artifacts in play.
I think it's neat. And it says favorites, so...
neat crosses out bad every time.
Yep,
neat always wins. Neat always wins.
So, 9th Doctor / 7th Doctor is my choice.
My favorite is the 12th Doctor, which is why we talked about it for so long.
Yeah, you made this outline. I'm like, the 12th Doctor's like this long on the outline.
I built it 3 times, basically, in an afternoon, and was like, this version's cool. But wait, this version's also really cool.
Yep.
Okay, but you could also make it a Lich deck. And we have to talk about the Lich deck.
Yeah.
I think 12th Doctor is the demonstrate one, and is a ton of fun, and also has a guitar. So I am on board. I also like that actor a lot.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah.
I love him.
I only watched the one episode with him as a doctor, but it was very good.
Which episode?
Heaven Sent.
I haven't actually watched that episode.
Oh, yeah?
I fell off Doctor Who a little bit during his era, and fell off a little bit during Jodie Whittaker. I've watched some of the episodes, but I haven't fully completed their seasons.
Heaven Sent's nice. It's like a very Black Mirror episode where it's just like a contained episode. You could watch Heaven Sent and not have seen any Doctor Who, and it would still be a fun thing to watch.
Yeah.
Okay. what is the most powerful doctor of the doctors that we talked about today?
I mean, I think the War Doctor, because it has the fewest hoops to jump through. There's a lot of these things where it's like, it's cool if you do this and then this. Whereas the War Doctor is like, do this one thing and you one-shot somebody.
Yeah, if you cascade and attack, someone dies.
Yeah.
Basically, if you cascade correctly.
So, I don't know. That has the lowest bar to being good, in my opinion.
I agree. I like the War Doctor is definitely the one that if I sat down across from it, I would be like, well, that thing needs to die.
Yep.
And it needs to die quickly. Like if it attacks someone's dead is for sure how it feels. Whereas the rest of them are a little bit like, all right, let's see how this all pays off.
Exactly.
I did write down the 12th Doctor for the most powerful here. I think the War Doctor is extremely dangerous. I think this blue-red build of the 12th Doctor is going to be extremely explosive.
Yep.
It is a 5-mana commander, but it's blue-red spells. It gives you a copy engine, and it gives you a copy payoff.
Yeah.
So it does require you to cast it from exile, but there's a lot of potential explosiveness there. So with ARCHIDEKT, who I think is one of the more powerful companions, I think is going to be one of the more powerful doctors as well.
He definitely can.
Oh, okay. To the listeners, what doctors are you most looking forward to? Which companion are you choosing to go with it? Did we cover it today? Did we hit on it? Is it for flavor reasons or is it for power reasons? What are the hot pieces of tech that go in that Doctor companion? We love reading the comments and seeing what you guys are excited to build and how you're building it. Hopefully we covered something that made you excited about this set. We talked about a lot of Magic cards today. All of them are available over at cardkingdom.com/command. You can pick up a bunch of singles and sealed product at Card Kingdom while supporting the show. Clearly, you watched this whole episode. Thank you for doing that.
You're the best.
If you've taken the time to watch this episode, please consider throwing us a couple pennies for completely free. Bookmark cardkingdom.com/command. Bookmark our other affiliate links. So every time you shop there, you are incidentally helping our show for free. Plus, Card Kingdom has a huge selection of Magic cards, and you can get everything that you're looking for when you're building a deck, and it'll all show up in one safe package. You can start sleeving immediately and get to your game night. So again, support the show at cardkingdom.com/command.
And also to support the show, you can use UltraPro products. UltraPro.com/command is the affiliate link to go to their website, get tons of awesome deals and stuff. But if you buy Magic cards, you got to sleeve the stuff. I'm not barebacking the Magic cards. I'm not doing it like on the sidewalk.
Could.
I mean, technically you could. I used to use penny sleeves back when I first started.
But shuffling with penny sleeves? Oh,
no, don't do that. Shuffle with Eclipse sleeves. Shuffle with the Apex sleeves that are going to be coming soon from UltraPro. And again, use the affiliate link, ultrapro.com/command to help out the show.
And go follow us on TikTok. If you're one who ticks or talks, you can watch. I'm a million years old.
It's Doctor Who. It's time-themed TikTok. There's a joke there somewhere.
Yeah, you can go watch our TikToks. You can watch our reels and our shorts on YouTube. We are making that content now. We're really excited about those. So make sure that you are not missing some Command Zone content. Before we go, we're going to say thank you to our amazing team here at the Command Zone. Thank you to Damon Lentz, Eric Lem, Megan Yip, Gaurav Galati, Jordan Pridgeon, Jamie Block, Arthur Meadowcroft, Manson Lung, Jake Boss, Sam Waldo, Evan Limburger, Katie Cole, Mitch Trafford, Josh Lee Kwai, and Jimmy Wong. And of course, to Josh Murphy for taking some time to talk about the Doctors with me.
Of course, anytime.
Talking about Doctor Who.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Bye.
For your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @JoshLeeQuai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.